Do we have any apologies for absence, Phil?
No.
No apologies. Okay, moving on then. Declarations of interest, members. Do we have any declarations of interest?
Chair, I'm a director of the Dornoch Area Community Asset Company, so where that is mentioned in items 8 and 9, I'll take no part. I'll answer questions if that is reasonable, but I'll take no part in any decision on those applications.
Thank you. Any other declarations of interest, members? No. Okay. Okay, moving on to item 3, we have the police area performance summary, and we've got Chief Inspector Scott MacDonald here and Inspector Chris Murray. Which one of you gentlemen is going to lead off here?
I'll be fit by the end of it.
Yeah. Okay, good morning everybody. It gives me pleasure to present this report to yourselves. For those of you who don't know me, Chief Inspector Scott MacDonald, Area Commander for North Highland, so obviously cover the Sutherland area. This report I'm going to present today, it covers the period from the 1st of April 2022 through till the end of December 2022. And I hope that this sort of new style of report is okay for everybody and it's still achieving what it needs to achieve. The interpretation of the statistics that we put in the report, that continues, we continue to use that so we have the policing in the right places and obviously to put our plans in place and obviously to try and counteract the demand that we face day to day in the area. The COVID pandemic is still having an effect on our statistics, so it'll be quite a few years following that we expect things to become more readable and it starts to make more sense. It has kind of squiffed things somewhat. So following the COVID challenges, we're obviously facing real cost of living challenges across the county. I'm experiencing that from being the area commander, but also as being the chair of the Sutherland Community Partnership. You see the real issues that are there. So, and a lot of good work getting done to try and counteract that too. With respect to my team, we continue to work with partners to protect vulnerable people within the communities in respect to these challenges. We're maintaining our presence on the Highland roads, enforcing road traffic legislation, improving road safety and investigating road traffic collisions. The team continues to engage with visitor management plan. We have fortnightly meetings and a lot of work gets done that in respect to patrols, particularly around the sort of North Coast 500, which obviously is more the sort of summer period. It's obviously quieted off during the winter months, but it's still a focus for us and our plans going forward for the next period as spring comes in now. There's been an anticipated increase in assaults and as social distance being removed, the COVID restrictions being lifted, people going back to licensed premises, so fully anticipated an increase in antisocial behaviour and assaults. But I'm pleased to say that antisocial behaviour incidents have reduced by a third in this period, which is good. Although we have seen a small increase in assaults, but it is small. Causative crime in the area remains low. Still a really good, safe place for us to live in. Fraud continues to increase, however. I reported at the last time round that the types of fraud, with the computing fraud, advance fee frauds, people getting the phone calls, all that sort of thing. We're continually trying to get the message out there through media, posters, all sorts of different things with our prevention interventions. But unfortunately, almost on a daily basis, people are reporting this type of frauds to ourselves, and it's a real issue, a real problem. You'll note from the report there's a significant increase in missing person inquiries from the previous year. That's due to a number of factors, but the main one being we've got particularly looked after children in some of the areas who continually go missing. They generally get found pretty quick, but they're reported missing, and that kind of makes the statistic look worse than what it really is. Incidents of hate crime remain low, at the same level as the previous year. We continue to support victims of crime to engage with us and feel confident reporting crimes to us. The work tackling serious and organised crime continues. We continue to disrupt these individuals and work effectively with partners, which is key. And finally, from the sort of introduction, the implementation of technology within Police Scotland, we're hoping it will continue. They're looking at body-worn cameras, which would be a big asset for ourselves, particularly for officers who work in Sutherland in the more remote areas and work by themselves. and I used to be one of those officers, so I can see the real benefit of that type of equipment. However, there's been some real budget cuts, and the announcements from the government. They were going to flat rate, obviously, our budget at one point, but we obviously got a small increase. However, it's nowhere near enough for us to sustain the sort of police numbers that we have, and also to purchase all those types of equipment and things. So that's a real issue for us, and an issue going forward. Going into the actual sort of Sutherland at a glance statistics part of the report. So in relation to the 6 local policing priorities, report for road safety and road crime. Overall road crime offences have increased by 42%. That's 76 more offences against the 5-year average, and increased by 17.3%, 38 more crimes against the last year to date. So within that, speeding was up 14 on the previous year and up 40 on the 5-year average. Operation CEDAR, which stands for Challenge, Educate, Detect and Reduce, we continue to work and use that campaign to get the message out there through enforcement, education, etc. We run multi-agency days through our Prevention and Interventions Officer, using all the other agencies. We go out and carry out campaigns. We also have a number of annual campaigns that our road policing unit they enforce throughout the year, and various campaigns, and we get involved in that as well, and reinforce that efforts as well. Mobile telephone offences have decreased by 50%, so that's 1 fewer crime against the 5-year average, and decreased by 80%, 4 fewer offences against last year to date. So that's really good, because the officers are out and about, and generally they're seeing an improvement there with people using mobile phones. Drink drunk driving is down 5, in line with the 5-year average. So it's sitting at 12, so it's back in line with that. It had been an increase on the previous report. And failure to insure against third-party risk offences have increased by 28.6%, and that's 4 more offences, not 4 fewer as in the report. That's a typo. So that's sitting at 18, and that's against the 5-year average of 14, and it's increased by 63.6%, which is 7 more offences against the previous year. And that's, as reported the last time, with cost of living crisis, that's maybe one of these things that people all fail to get, to make happen. So, and that's obviously a concern for road users. Moving on to antisocial behaviour, disorder and violence, including alcohol and drugs misuse. Overall, antisocial behaviour has decreased by 25.4%. That's 6.8 fewer crimes against the 5-year average, and decreased by 33.3%. 10 fewer crimes against the previous year to date. Breach of peace for ourselves, as I noted, been down by 10 fewer crimes. Offences in relation to common assault have increased by 9.6%. That's 3.6 more crimes against the 5-year average, and increased by 17.1%, 6 more crimes against the previous year to date. And of note of that is 3 of that further crimes. There was 3 more against emergency workers. So we're seeing a trend of police getting assaulted across the whole of not just the area of command, but the whole of the division. There seems to be more and more officers getting assaulted. Offences in relation to serious assault have decreased by 37.5%. That's 0.6 fewer crimes against the 5-year average, and increased by 1 crime against the previous year to date. So overall, it's a good picture, as I say, for Sutherland. Acquisitive crime, overall acquisitive crime has increased by 26%. That's 13.2 more crimes against the 5-year average, and increased by 25.5%. That's 13 more crimes against the previous year to date. Offences in relation to housebreaking, these remain low, which is good. For dwelling houses, it's increased by 66.7%. That's 0.8 more crimes against the 5-year average, and increased by 100%, which is 1 more crime against the previous year to date. So it's gone from 1 to 2, which is low level, which is good to be able to report that. Fraud offences have increased by 139.6%. As stated, fraud's a real issue for everybody. It's gone up by 13.4 more crimes against the 5-year average, and increased by 27.8%, which is 5 more crimes against the previous year to date. And as stated, carrying out various media campaigns in relation to fraud. We have the banking protocol, which works well. The banks have really taken it on board and reporting a lot more to us. We obviously have like the constant email ones, the one with the parcel scam, where you get the email saying that your parcel's been failed to be delivered, and then you have to go back in, you have to pay the money up front to get your parcel. That's a common one that's catching a lot of people out. And we're using Rural Watch to good effect with respect to other types of fraud as well in the area. Moving on to protecting vulnerable people. Overall, sexual crime has decreased by 22.7%, which is 5 less crimes against the 5-year average, and decreased by 66.7%, which is 34 less crimes against the previous year to date. The detection rate, however, remains high, which is 88.2%, which is good to be able to report that. Domestic related offences have decreased by 9.6%. That's 2.6 fewer crimes against the 5-year average, and decreased by 56%, 21 fewer crimes against the previous year to date. So that's gone from 48 down to 27, which is the average is 30 that we've had, and that's probably equated to, you get certain particular cases where there's a number of incidents, and that'll equate for the high level from the previous report. Serious and organised crime. Over the last reporting year, the Sutherland area offences in relation to the supply of drugs have decreased by 100%, which is 2.6 fewer crimes against the 5-year average, and decreased by 100%, which is 1 fewer crime against the previous year to date. So I would still reinforce to everybody as we get the message out that we as a police service, we rely on the public to come forward and give us information and intelligence, and when we get that information and intelligence, you know, from more than one source, we can then take action. And it's, yeah, so just getting that message out there. Please get the intelligence for us, and we can act upon it, and then hopefully deal with more suppliers of controlled drugs, because we know that they're there. It's not a case that they're not there. And then moving on to counter-terrorism and domestic extremism. So there's obviously an extract there from Lisa Campbell, who's our local counter-terrorism officer. So she carries out various training and development with respect to contest, and that type of training and inputs are on offer to anybody. So if you need any inputs, please get in contact with me. In addition to what she's reported in the report, she also does RAP training as well, which is workshop to raise awareness of prevent as well. And that's pretty much it in a nutshell from the thing. I'm not going to go into further into the body of the report, but I'll take any questions with respect to that.
You must get technology for that. Thank you, Scott, for that. It was very interesting. There's a few questions I've got, but also I think what I'd like to do first of all is to thank you and your officers for the work that you do in Sutherland. It's greatly appreciated, and I think it's testament to the fact we are living in a low crime area of the good work that you're doing. So thank you very much for that. Much appreciated. I've got a few things I was going to ask about, but you've answered most of them. But you started on page 2 to talk about the technology that might be cutbacks on, but you answered that, but body cams and things like that, so that was good. It'd be good to see that being rolled out, but I appreciate the budget cuts are there. And in terms of road safety, I was wondering, you're talking about the is it Operation Cedar? Is that replacing what we used to use for the driving and mission training that we used to work with schools?
No, that'll form part of it. That's not the. Yeah, so all these things form part of the action that we're taking. So no, it's not a case of replacing it. It's that'll form part of the Operation Cedar. And Operation Cedar just works alongside all the other initiatives that we have going on in the area.
The glamorous assistant's bringing my phone. Yeah, thanks for that. Driving ambition was quite strong for a while, but I haven't heard much about it recently. Is something that you are pushing at the moment?
It's something through, like we have obviously got like Caithness Cares, we've got Sutherland Cares, and generally the meetings and the action we're trying to take. It comes down to resourcing at the moment, we're able to put these things in place. We obviously want to do as much school liaison, do the type of driving ambition, all that sort of stuff. But I know there hasn't been a lot of that in the last period, but it's certainly something that we're looking to deliver going forward.
Thank you.
We're pleased to have a campaign around young drivers that are directed at apprenticeships, and have been working with Dunray and various workplace establishments for young drivers in recent months. And they're delivering inputs to them directly for those that are sort of really qualified drivers. Right. So they've been targeting a lot of people who have just got into the workplace and getting them through and having that employer support to deliver.
Super, thank you for that. I've got a question of crime. I've just what I'll do is be careful of percentages, because there's some of the big percentages, but it's still low numbers.
Low numbers, that's
yeah,
right. It's like,
so
yeah, going to the yes.
Sometimes it can be misleading, but it's just because it's low numbers. So that's really the most important thing. I'm delighted to see that the positive change in sexual crimes. That's a real positive.
Yeah.
Sexual crimes is not broken down to Sutherland alone. That's for the North Highland area as a whole. Unfortunately, it can't be broken down to that level. And there's a big increase last year, you may recall, and that was because of an individual who'd been identified and targeted, and various partners had been approached, and there was a bigger increase last year. So that's why it counts for such a difference this year.
It's very encouraging. Anyway. And last thing I want is to do with the serious and organised crime. It's interesting to see about the figures about the drugs side of things, but I know that there's still issues with county lines and such like. So it's. I mean, we all know the drugs are out there and relatively easy to get, I'm led to believe. So there is obviously issues with supply of drugs. So I'm guessing there must be ongoing activities under the radar. That
there's ongoing operations throughout the whole division, targeting obviously the suppliers of controlled drugs. We're fortunate at the moment in Sutherland, but as I say, we rely on intelligence to give us that picture as to who the main people are, and that's people we need to be targeting, because you've got a lot of people turn to drugs, as we know, through mental health or through other unfortunate situations, and these people, they're really like the victims. They're obviously they're the ones that are demanding and buying the drugs. For us to then target them, we need to target people that are just causing the misery and supplying them in the first place, and that's where we need the intelligence, and it's absolutely key to be able to carry out enforcement activity.
I mean, I see this is just for the Sutherland area, so it's a good message for Sutherland. But I'm guessing that the figures for Highland would be considerably more than that, I think.
Yes, I mean there is generally they are taking a lot of proactive work towards drug suppliers, and it is for the whole Highland, yeah, absolutely. But for Sutherland, there is drugs out there, absolutely, as you said, and we know there is people within Sutherland that will be supplying drugs, but we just need to have that intelligence so we can then stop them.
So thank
I would just add to that some of the bigger seizures are on the way to Sutherland, but are not in the Sutherland report because they're stopped in Inverness and southbound. Yeah. So that some of that drugs are destined for this area, but are being intercepted prior to coming here from the report.
So thank you very much. Well, that's all I've got. Open up to the members. Members, do you have any questions or comments?
I just want to put on record my appreciation for the leadership the police provide for the Southern Community Partnership. I think it's excellent, and it's really taking us forward with a number of fronts. And secondly, one that caught my eye was drivers without insurance. Quite natural these days when money's tight. Yeah. But is that a campaign, or do you pick it up just on as a secondary thing as you investigate an incident?
There is campaigns that are run throughout the year that target that type of thing, but there's also, we have the technology that you can pick up cars that haven't got insurance and cars that haven't got MOT and things as well, when vehicles are out and about patrolling.
And you put the MOT in the license, what the insurance is part of that.
Insurance is part of that.
Yeah. Good, thanks.
So just to come back to Jim's bit, so that's on the NCPR?
NPR.
NPR.
NPR and routine checks, and as Scott alluded to, there's operations we're running with preventions and interventions, which are in road checks with partner agencies, and that will identify some as well.
Yeah.
Okay, Any other questions, members?
Chair.
Hugh?
Yeah.
Councillor Morrison?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you very much, and thanks for the report, gents. It's as usual, it's a good, thorough report, and puts Sutherland in a good stead going forward. Just a couple of questions I have for you. One is on the defibs. I noticed that PC Morrison and Lochinver got a defib for his vehicle for the Ascent area, and is that? I think that was through a charity, but I might be wrong. But is that something that could be rolled out, or is it money restraints again? And also going forward for the season ahead, how important do you think it is that the council keep the rangers that they've had for the couple of years previous to help and alongside yourselves and your colleagues? Thank you.
I think that certainly the defibs have been rolled out to certain areas across North Highland, where there's been a discussion with the ambulance service about where there's going to be a lack of facility. Absolutely one of them. North Coast being one of them. All this is another one. So various places and officers have been given them to support the ambulance service. Our road policing vehicles have had them for a while, and that's the charity you're alluding to, which is for the young lad that died in Aberdeenshire, and his parents did a campaign, and that's provided road policing vehicles. But these other ones have come in and are distributed to sort of support what's out there. We'll get the call from the ambulance control first. So if somebody phones the ambulance control and there's an ambulance too far away, then they'll ask if we are nearby or we can assist and attend those.
Yeah, but what I would say on top of that, I mean, obviously the more vehicles that we have, this type of kit, the better. But we're sort of like going into the area where it's a health service. We're facing a lot more demand now with mental health calls. They take up sort of 30 to 40% of our calls. So we're dealing with a lot of incidents, things that we shouldn't really be dealing with, and we're filling that void where other areas, haven't got the numbers required or response times. So again, I mean, I would have rather we had defibs in every vehicle, but if we're then going to be called and replacing ambulances and paramedics, then that doesn't really sit comfortably with me, because we have a core remit to do other things. We should be investigating crimes and keeping people safe. And, yeah. And moving on, sorry, I should say welcome back as well. Good to see
Thank you.
And respect to the Rangers, but absolutely, I think the Ranger service is an excellent addition. It really helps us out, and they do a really good piece of work for us. And just going out there and educating people. I mean, we certainly have the resources to do that. So, no, that's an excellent use.
Yes, I think it's really important. It removes a lot of the calls to the police. We are limited in numbers, and as she's got to do, we are supporting that backfill for struggling other services, and the Ranger service has dealt with a lot of the minor matters and reported back, which hasn't required police attendance they've been able to deal with. So it's been really positive what I've seen for the last couple of years.
Thank you.
Great, thank you very much for that. Any other questions, members? No, that's okay. Okay, members, we're invited to note the progress made against the objectives set within the Highland Local Policing Plan 2020-23. Year 2 attacked as the appendix we have here. We happy we've done that? Yeah. Great. Okay. Thank you very much. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. Much appreciated. I know you're very busy. You're more than welcome to stay with us, but I'm guessing other things to do. Thank you. Okay.
Sorry, I got phone just as I was coming out.
Yeah, sure.
Members?
Somebody thought rumour.
Yeah.
But we went to that.
So you're still
Members, shall we move on, please? Okay. Okay, members, we're on to item 4 of the agenda. It's the highlight item presentation. And I can just apologise if I don't know your name. Wilma. We've got Wilma here to present this presentation for us. Thank you very much, Wilma.
Okay, you ready to go?
Yeah.
Thank you firstly for inviting me along today. I'll admit I had the date in my head as the 24th of February, and when Phil emailed me last week to say, are you ready for Tuesday? I went, no, but I will be. So it was a bit of a rush preparation, but hopefully it'll be okay. I could write volumes, you know, it just, so hopefully the snapshot that I'm going to give you today is a big insight into Sutherland Youth Services for Highland. So we've got the 5 ASGs, clearly absent young people. A member of young people go to Alipo High, which is in a different partnership area, but the ASG covers the whole lot. It's a very big ASG. So I've broken them down into exactly what you see there on the screen, and start with Kinlochbervie. So normally in Kinlochbervie we would have a part-time youth development officer. That is the agreement, and we've had a tricky time there. We've had a challenging time basically because we've had a vacancy. The regular member of staff was seconded into another post, and it's very difficult recruiting into these areas, and seems to be getting more difficult than before. So yeah, we had a vacancy and not much happening, unfortunately. Just reflecting back to 2020 as well, obviously COVID was a major challenge for us. We put digital engagement into place, which didn't work, sort of. It just, you know, it was a means of engagement as best we could for quite a long period of time. And some young people were really quite up for it, and others not. It just didn't work for them. 2021 came along, we started building up sort of and going through recovery and doing what we could. And then of course we had another downfall where our youth porter cabin was condemned. We just got going. There was bits of work doing it, did all those things, and then the council were up to do something and just discovered it was porous, and we just couldn't continue to use it. However, in that time we had managed to get some family learning sessions going on with young families and young people and young parents, and we had a drop-in every Friday afternoon. I realise I'm not really talking to, you know, but hopefully these points up there will give you an idea. And all that, those 2 activities worked really nicely, sort of from September up until December, and that's when the blow came that we had to close the cabin. Did look at the school for some activities. Doesn't have the same sort of attraction for young people. They don't want to go at youth activity in school necessarily. However, and it was costly for us too. And then something really nice happened. We were approached by Julie Allen, who works with the Rainforest Estate, and let us know that we were being selected as their charity of the year, or for 2 years actually, and their charitable donations were going to come to us. That then had a wee bit of a snowball effect where the Westminster Foundation itself, then the main foundation, got in touch wanting to support us, wanting to help us. They'd heard that the porter cabin had been condemned. So we did have some budget, some reserves that were going to go towards a new cabin, but not quite enough. We were going to have to look at finding further funding. So Westminster Foundation came in as a partner with us, and we began work on developing that proposal to them, and it was all accepted and agreed by their trustees, and they put up just slightly less than 50% of the cost of the new cabin. But that was over and above the charitable donations that have just started coming in now to us there just before Christmas time. So we've got a lovely new cabin. It was dropped into place. I've got some photos that you'll see in a minute. We have also got money from the ward to help towards that as well. And so we're working through that expense and getting the cabin up and running. We're in the middle of getting the Wi-Fi and the broadband sort of sorted out just now to get activities going really well in there. Another positive was that we eventually managed to recruit a youth support officer, so not a youth development officer at this stage. Hopefully in the new financial year that will come back to us, it will. But the youth support officer was just in post just before Christmas and has basically hit the ground running. And it's taken a lot of the weight off me because it's myself that's been doing it from a distance. That's not easy when you live and work in Dingwall, sort of keeping an eye on these very remote places. You can't do it on a daily basis, clearly. So we have a new lady in there. We did some work with the young people, or I did, sort of in the interim period. I was going back and forth a few times and meeting with the young people to sort of get their ideas of what they would like to see in their new youth porta cabin, what they'd like to call it. And you'll see there they came up with this wonderful name called Big Blue Box, which just seems absolutely appropriate. The school, their education were really helpful as well, and we were able to position the cabin at the back of the school rather beside the village hall, so it's also a nice area there beside the sea. Yeah, so lots of work going on behind the scenes there with young people too. So lots of partners there. Highland, the high school, the Geopark, really keen to come and work with us. They always were. Westminster Foundation, Rainforest Estate, SDS, all the regular partners that work with young people, developing young workforce partnerships. Highland Council, Highland Cares, clearly. Highland Outdoor Learning, really keen to do more in North West Sutherland and Sutherland as a whole to make sure young people have opportunities for outdoor activities. The Countryside Rangers, you know, the 4 Highland services in that area are the Countryside Rangers, ourselves, and youth, adult learning, and after schools. So looking at some really sort of strong partnerships internally as well as with external partners. So I'll show you some of the pictures here. So hopefully you can make them out there, but there's the cabin being dropped into place. A very exciting day last July. And the Duke of Westminster came and opened it officially for us. He was really keen to come and meet the young people. So he had a double whammy. He got to see around the school, and then he came and spent the afternoon with ourselves and the young people in the porta cabin. He was on his knees playing Jenga and playing the gaming machines and sort of their Xbox. And this young lad was very keen to cut the ribbon with him. So this one here, you'll not see it with the sort of tartan rounded down the bottom, sort of off centre. That was an open day at Rainforest that we were invited along to with all the different employers within the different types of employment within the Rainforest estate, of all the opportunities that are available to young people as they leave school. That's our presentation board. And so a few of us went up to that. With our leadership programme development officer came to talk about the leadership programme with the young people, and all the schools. In fact, some schools did overnights so that their young people from Gerlock and other places could come to the open day as well and see all of this. We can't open this one with the bunting, and it's rather small there, but we created some bunting for the open day to go around the inside of the cabin, so the young people drew or wrote or, you know, onto card, and then we had it transferred onto bunting. The social enterprise group that works out with Rhoda Learning Centre created this for us through the adult learning team. And there's a little poem on one of those little triangles up there, and it just blows you away. I can send it to you actually so you can actually see it, but it's about a safe place, a happy place. It just, yeah, there was tears in my eyes when I read it on his card, you know, what he'd written, but it was like somewhere that he was really looking towards to being a really friendly space, very moving. So that's Kinloch Berby. So really looking forward to a year ahead of lots going on. Hopefully a more stable, settled staffing structure going forward as well. Also it will come up in the Eligible Assent slide. We do have some new staff in Assent, and okay, we're all in fixed term contract sort of structure at the moment, but we do have potential for some of the staff that are going to be working in November to sort of reach out there as well to support the support officer in Berby, or the development officer when back to that. Okay. So then we've got FAR along the north coast there. Same again, part-time youth development officer in these areas. We only have one full-time development officer in Sutherland. But we've also got 2 part-time assistant youth workers in FAR. But they're solely run the mega calf in Melbourne, which has been running for a long time, long before my time in this post. And they run it twice a week and it's all year round. And there's anything, up to 14 young people use that facility every week as a drop-in or for more structured activities. They're very active during the summer holidays, where it seems it's a sort of hub for the activities to take place around. Our youth development officer up there is also the part-time active schools coordinator, so she's got a dual role, which blends quite nicely, really. She's a very good relationship with all the young people up there. I've been a young mum herself as well, so there's never a dull moment in Rhoda's life. Same challenges clearly again, 2020 COVID, the digital contact again in that area wasn't best as we were sort of coming out of recovery. And the geography and the rural deprivation is huge up there. They're so away from so many things, and even our YDO herself, she's got young children, they like to go to football, they like to go to other things, hairdressers even, and round trip of 100 miles to go to something, in an evening, and it's, a lot of pressure. Positives, this is, I spoke to all the YDOs themselves, I wanted their voice to come through in this and not just me, so, her main positive is she's got an amazing squad of young leaders. And it's hard to recruit, it's hard to bring in volunteers, but our young leaders that have developed their skills throughout secondary school, starting quite young, some of them are the deliverers of a lot of the activities within both services there, active schools and youth development. You'll see a picture of them in a minute. Some good news stories there. They had a whole school trip to Orkney in the summer, 76 pupils. All took time out to go to Orkney just before the summer holidays. They had managed to secure some sponsorship for the ferry, but also brought in funding, SSE funding, which our YDO is very good at bringing in external funding and taps into the wind farm money a lot, which is fantastic for the area. And then our partners, like other areas, and it depends on the services that are in the area as well, but obviously the high school where she's based, and Council, Highland Cares, local voluntary groups, and SDST, and Mikey's Line, and she has a story about Mikey's Line, that all the senior pupils from S4 to S6 were given the opportunity to train as first aiders. And this came post-COVID lockdown from the pupils themselves who feel they wanted to be able to help others in an emergency situation because they live so remotely, and that they can support each other better if they had that training under their belts. So, so 2 members of staff from Mikey's Line had visited the school and gave a presentation to the pupils, and our YDO is now training 14 pupils who have signed up to be Mikey's Line champions for the school. And they'll be to promote the services provided by Mikey's Line, keep a notice board up to date in the school, fundraise, become ambassadors for breaking down stigma of poor mental health and suicide. Her young leaders, I've got some notes here as well so I don't forget things. Her truly amazing squad of 13 leaders, they help run after school clubs in Melbourne, Tan and Betty Hill during term time, and they also help deliver the summer schools out programme. And we've got some pictures, as I say. What else has she got? Summer 22, they've got a lovely new shed at the Mega Calf in Melbourne to store their outdoor equipment, which is a big asset for them as well because there wasn't a lot of space in their building. They had grass laid on an area outside the Mega Calf as well in the last couple of years, which is a great space for activities and outdoor games as well. that's far. So let's see some pictures from them. We can make them out here. So up in the top left there, there's her leaders, her young leaders, all wearing their Highland leadership hoodies. At the end, I'll tell you a wee bit more about that programme. But young people are really eager to get involved with the leadership programme because they get their certificates, they get accreditation now as well, and they get all these lovely colourful goodies when they do certain courses. And the other photos are basically their trip to Orkney, their Halloween party, where staff and young people alike all dressed up and had great fun. And then another Orkney one down below. So, okay. And next, they're in no order around the coast. We have Ascent, obviously, for the purposes of Sutherland today. Sorry, there's so much to say about this area that the writing just gets smaller and smaller and smaller. Part-time youth development officer as well, 17.5 hours, but she has 8 assistant youth workers, 7 of them I think externally funded and 1 funded by core budget. She's just had 2 recently taken on to deliver activities in Lochimber, and all the others are in and around Allopole, so Lochimber as well, but in and around Allopole, reaching out to a lot of young people. Same challenges, lack of services in the area, the geography, the catchment is huge, it's across 2 CPPs. However, lots of positives here. Digital engagement worked really well in Allopole and Ascent, really, really well. But we've also seen a successful development of Allopole Youth Space, which has become a base for many youth projects and many young people to utilise, including Lochimber young people. And I know on a Friday afternoon, their bus isn't till later, so they all go to the youth space and do lots of activities and get support here for anything they need. But aside to that, we have a new youth group recently started in Lochimber, running in the Ascent Leisure Centre, so a partnership with them, and the attendance already is around 10 to 14 young people who've only been running 2 weeks. So you can see the need is there. They're really needing their own space. They've elected to call it the Lochimber Youth Space, so they have a satellite group of Allopole Youth Space. The 8 staff last Friday went through Introduction to Youth Work training, new staff and existing staff, a refresher for them, and say lots of opportunities. Lots of intergenerational activities have gone on there, where there's digital support, board games, chat, informal consultation and community matters all the time. It's ongoing. Funding for all these posts has come from Highland Coastal Communities, Sutherland Cares, SCBO Charity Fund, Tesco Community Fund, the Highland Council Food Grant Scheme, Allopole District Youth Group, Allopole Community Council. And the youth development officer is particularly good at seeking and securing external funding to make sure that this full service is offered to young people in the area. And the partners like the others, Allopole High School, the Allopole District Youth Group. They're the ones that focus on bringing in funding for the building, and our youth development officer brings in the funding for the staffing and the activities within the building, so it's a good way of working. The Village Hall is a partner, Allopole Community Trust, CPP, Sutherland Community Wellbeing Group, the list pretty much the same as the rest, employability team, Highland Cares, and all our own internal services. So some photos from Allopole, just some advertising outside the Village Hall, trip to Landmark, the photo of them all there in the middle, that's all the Lochimber young people upstairs in the Allopole Youth Space. And then the 3 photos along side our S1 group. They did a fundraiser selling baking and hot chocolate, and they were gaining their dynamic youth award by doing that. And I've lost a picture up there. I realised there was a group of young leaders who had been running a drama group, and they will get their dynamic youth award through running the drama group there as well. And there's another area doing that too. So 2 more to go. Golspie, another very busy area. This is where we only have the only full-time development officer plus 1 assistant youth worker. Similar challenges. Some sort of different things identified there by Helen as are happening in all the other areas, but was our discussion the other day. So Helen sees an increase in vaping and drug use, which we're hearing from the police as well about the drug situation. Poverty and health and well-being is ongoing, so all the work she does is around a lot of these issues. Positives, creating safe spaces. She has a safe space within the school for the school day. The Education Recovery Project 2 years ago, East Sutherland was one of the areas that got funding for that. That was a very successful project, giving young people an opportunity to do lots of outdoor activities, as well as other group activities in Brora Learning Centre. Our leadership group, the Helmstill Leadership Group, are the group that have done all the fundraising to buy the defibrillator for Helmstill. And they're an ongoing group, they work really hard, doing lots of things for the community. So good news stories, it is all about community and young people involved, projects to help the recovery from COVID. They've got leadership groups, their support connecting communities and libraries, warm spaces, Golspie High School Drama Group, the Helmstill Community Youth Group, Health and Wellbeing, Mental Health, Climate Change Group, Safe Space Lunchtime Group, Additional Special Needs Support to Achieve Dynamic Youth Awards Group. And there is a really good video which I think has been shown at committee from last year. We've got young people who are awarded certificates at Foster's for the work they've done in the community. And we have always a really good schools out programme. So Education Recovery Fund was awarded in 2021 for an 8-month project. They supported young people re-engage with education. Sutherland Cares is funding projects just now, ongoing. Highland Council Award funding for schools out. And the partners will not go into them again, but there's a few that are different, like Tykes and Primary Mental Health Worker, Helen works closely with. And we have Planet Youth in Golspie as well, which is something that Highland are a partner in too. So again, I didn't lose the picture, it's in this one. So lots of things going on there, some paddle boarding, young lads being awarded his Dynamic Youth Award certificate there. The long picture down on the left at the bottom is the Helmstill group. Above that, they're delivering goodie bags out in the community, they're preparing them above that, and our drama group there on the top right, who are working with a group of younger pupils on a drama project, and all will be revealed about that project quite soon, I believe, as they'll be doing an event to show what they've done. And lastly but not least, Dornoch, again, challenges there. Staffing is normally a part-time youth development officer, as I'm sure you're all aware, you know her well. Andy Vaughan was seconded, and now she's left us to go and work in the council in one of the Highland Council posts. But we also have 2 fixed-term assistant youth worker posts and a youth support officer post, which I've omitted from there, strangely. We put a fixed-term youth support officer into Dornoch Academy to focus on achievement, because that's a big part of our work this year is to work with the schools on achievement. So Angus focuses purely on achievement in his role. But we have 2 fixed-term assistant youth workers, one just coming into post now, but the other one has been in post since last spring, and we work in partnership with the Dornoch Hub running youth activities twice a week. That's been a victim of its own success. Really, the numbers have grown and grown. Young people are really, really keen on going along to youth club to take part in all sorts of different activities. So we've taken on another assistant youth worker who will, his contract's very short, but hopefully it will set the scene for what comes after in the new financial year. We don't know yet. Like everybody, we don't know what budgets we're going to have yet. But it's a really positive story for Dornoch young people there. Norman at the school has very kindly offered us space there, and if we keep outgrowing the Dornoch Hub, we can have some space in the school to run a youth club after school as well. So we're not stuck. Yeah, up to 15 people just about attending every week. And the partners, like the Planet Youth was also in Dornoch as well. Okay, So my last slide that we're just coming up, there's some pictures from Dornoch. I don't have many photos just now from Dornoch, but you see a group there making their Halloween lanterns. But Dornoch Youth Development is an award, is awards aware, and just a wee poster there that Angus had put on the Facebook page. So basically, I was trying to do a statistic right back to 2019 to show you sort of the trends, sort of how healthy it was in 2019, the dip in 2020. We're almost back to where we were in 2019, but this is purely Sutherland stats over in 2022, so we're not through 2022 yet, but from April. So we've had 7,751 engagements, which is 9,626 learning hours. So that's the amount of hours that we're delivering, and 767 programmed activities in that period of time. I've roughly just taken a percentage, sort of almost a 50% percentage in Alapole, because they're classed, they're recorded as Alapole, so to sort of siphon off the Loch Inver stats isn't the easiest thing to do. Maybe that's something we need to have a look at just more closely and have something available that we can do that. Our operational guidance gives us 6 commitments, which we used to call our learning streams. Since we updated the guidance last spring, we now call them our 6 commitments. And we have needs analysis, so looking at what the needs are in our communities so that we can deliver to meet those needs. Planning and development, and that's all about what we're going to do, having a plan and developing it, and who's going to be involved in that plan. Our workforce development, as it says, it's about making sure our staff are trained and everything they need to have under their belts to deliver a good service and a safe service. And then the other 3 are basically the 3 learning streams that all our youth workers are delivering on. The Get On, which is about achievement, Get Involved is come and get involved with youth work, and Get Heard is youth voice, to make sure young people are listened to and are heard and are involved in their communities and play an important role and are valued. So the achievement, because it's a huge focus this year, I'm not dismissing any of the other stuff at all, is a huge focus, but achievement really, we have our own Highland Leadership Award Scheme and an award called Choose to Lead, which is actually accredited with UHI now. So young people are gaining their SCQF points like they will with SQA awards. We have all the Youth Scotland Awards. We'll recognise as well sort of our Dynamic Youth Awards and our Youth Achievement Bronze, Silver, Gold. Salter Awards aren't accredited, but all very valuable to show commitment and the amount of volunteering that young people provide in the communities. John Muir Award, an environmental award, which we all really enjoy and love being part of. And the SQA Awards as well are growing in the Highland. We will be delivering more of these. And I just want to quickly mention the one-to-one work and what the amount of time that our youth development officers have put into one-to-one work since COVID, really. I mean, it's always happened, but since COVID, it's a daily occurrence for our youth development officers. They have a very good relationship with all the young people they work with them, and are approached daily for support and help and signposting and support to maybe make appointments and things, and we have the counsellors in the schools now as well, but sometimes the young people prefer to go, not dismissing that, but they prefer to go to their youth development officer for support and help, and that's what we do. But a huge amount of one-to-one work goes on for young people with youth development officers. And I'll shut up there.
Thank you very much.
Move ahead with the microphone then.
Thank you very much, Laura, for that. That's really interesting. I've got a couple of questions and I'll open it up to everybody else. You talked about definitely recruiting, particularly you mentioned it, KP and Bar.
And Dornoch,
Richard.
yeah.
What do you think are the barriers to that recruitment?
For our youth development officer, we do look for a qualification. And there's been, I would say, a downturn in people going off to do a CLD or a youth work or in my case it was a community education, degree which encompassed everything. And I don't think we've had the same sort of amount of people going away or accessing that training. It's not been available up here. UHI are now offering PDA and youth work and working with communities qualification as well, which is going to be amazing that's going to be accessible locally.
I was asking about the cabin and wee boxes it's called now. You said in the presentation that it was open on Friday night. What's the opening times for that?
That was the old cabin that we managed to put that in after COVID, and before that was open, much more than that. It will be available to young people lunchtimes, evenings. However we can staff it. Friday afternoons it will be open, definitely. Maybe Saturday mornings when we've got this new member of staff now in place. And we're just at the point of developing that programme. I'm actually on Thursday to do a wee bit more work with them there on that. We're having, just development takes so long sometimes, but we still have a wee bits of work to do that the council are doing on our behalf. We've still got to get a sort of decking area outside the front door. Our own ICT guys are on the broadband installation at the moment. And once we've got all that in place, it will be fully functional. Completion certificates we're chasing to get in. We want it to be, it's a youth facility, but we want to make sure it's a small community so that our community has use of it for not just youth work. Family learning can use it, community groups can use it. So it will be open to all where we can, as long as youth have the priority over it.
Move the microphone a bit closer. They're right in the middle.
Yep. And that'll be right all through the year, yes?
Yes.
Thank you. I was very interested in the young leaders. I think that's a great scheme. It certainly gives the kids something to aim for, which is good.
They're so eager when they get that first hoodie. What are you going to do now?
Last question I've got for you is, you talked about 9,626 learning hours. When you talk about learning hours, what actually are you meaning?
It's the way our system works. The amount we put in the engagements, the amount of young people that have attended an activity, and it's the length of the activity times the number of engagements. So it's averaging it out. How many young people have done so many hours, or been involved with us over so many hours.
Okay, thank you. Okay, members, any questions that we have? Sorry? You got a question?
Yes, thank you. Thanks for the presentation, first of all, as well. My question is for the pupils in Kinlochbervie and Farr. I take it this is just specifically for the kids of Kinlochbervie and Betty Hill, or have you got ideas of how to transport people throughout the northwest of Sutherland? Because it's, if you're including Tang and Melvick in the Betty Hill one and Scowley and Dernis in the Kinlochbervie one, how do they get back and forth after school hours? Thank you.
That is a big issue. And at the moment, I wouldn't be able to say definitely what we can and can't do, but we're always thinking about transport for young people to get back and forth from one place to another, and what we can do locally for them as best we can. It's the best way, apart from that, for the likes of Scowley, young people being able to attend the Big Blue Box. We would be relying on parents as well, depending on what the programme is going to look like. But it's something that's on our radar all the time as to how we can manage. And the bonus for Kinlochbervie is that we do have this funding from Westminster Foundation, so we're in a lucky position there to be able to do a bit more than maybe we might normally be able to do when it comes to transport. So it's on our radar, in our minds, and we'll do what we can to make sure that it's accessible to as many as we can.
Thank you.
Any other questions, members?
A question. The new bylaw in Dora, can you contact with me, please, with her, because when Yvonne was there, I was in every week to see her and keep up to date, but I've lost touch, and it's my fault, so.
I can do that.
You can
I mean, it's a young man that's there just now.
Right, okay, that's good.
Do that.
And the other thing that crossed my mind is, just as we have the glitch in the west coast with Liverpool, we have the glitch here with Glenfield and Edgerton, and there's no way down that I know, but just kind of mention it in passing.
Yeah. Inactive schools do a fair bit in some of these areas, more than what maybe youth development does. I mean, we did have a youth club running in Edgerton there for a while, but it sort of comes and goes, it sort of fades away, the attendance drops, and then we'll look at it again. And so we did have staff, and they're still on the books that, you know, the need arises.
Okay, that's right.
Well, Senator Hutchinson, you had your hand up.
Thank you for the presentation as well. It's really interesting. I just wanted to say on Asant's behalf, it's great that there's now some youth input in Lochainver. But bearing in mind, I'd like to echo what Hugh said about the lack of transport, because although there is the youth activity in Lochainver now, there's still not the opportunity for the Asant pupils to share with their peer group, their wider peer group in Ullapool, due to the lack of transport after school back up to Asant. I've had lots and lots of parents and carers in touch about that. I'm trying to work with the school and with Yvonne, the youth development officer, to see if we can do anything about that. But it's just, also the pupils aren't able to take part in training sessions for different sports or any other extracurricular things. So it's an ongoing problem.
Yeah, but Yvonne spoke to me on Friday about that it should be working with you.
Yeah, I think it's well recognised that transport across Sutherland is an issue, and probably across the Highlands actually.
Yes,
so we are trying to work on that. But,
Not just for the youth, but everybody.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Any other questions, members? No? Well, thank you very much indeed for that presentation. That's been really interesting. You want to hang on? Okay, members, moving on. We've got Claire Nichols from Youth Highland, who's welcome, Claire. Claire can give us a presentation on the work that she's doing in the third sector for youth sports.
Can I just throw something quickly? I have forgotten the big school too. The youth development Facebook pages, if anybody's using Facebook, quite a lot of the Facebook pages are full of really lovely bits of information and photographs and just.
We can't really hear what Claire's saying.
Oh, that's Wilma, sorry. You will hear me, I'm loud.
Sorry about that. No, just to point folk in the direction of the youth development Facebook pages, if anybody does Facebook. Not all our YDOs are prolific on them, but you know, quite a lot of them are, and in this area they are. And you'll pick up all sorts of updates and information on their Facebook pages.
Okay, thanks for that one. Okay, Claire, over to you.
Oh, thank you very much. It's really nice to be here, and I was delighted to get the invitation to speak. It's the first time I've ever spoken to a group of councillors in one go since I've been in my job in 10 years, so I'm a bit nervous, and I hope that you will take that into consideration and be kind. So I'm Claire Nichols, and I'm the Chief Officer of an organisation called Youth Highland, and have been for about 10 years. Previous to that, I worked in the youth service as a youth development officer in Dingwall for a couple of years, covering a couple of youth workers' maternity cover. And before that, I have worked in various places across the UK in various kind of youth work and community development roles. So in urban and rural areas, as developing different sort of learning programmes and community development programmes, ranging from museums, education stuff, through to employability, through to youth work, and have had some really exciting things in my career. So, for example, was really lucky to support young people to develop the first UK Youth Parliament event in 2000, and as a young person myself, was really sort of affected by how great youth work can be. So did stuff like my DofE, but also travelled to Albania when I was about 19 or 20 with a group of 20 other young people, and went and painted orphanages and schools, which was life-changing. So probably so life-changing it ended in me choosing this career. So it's really nice to now work in Highland. So I've been the Chief Officer of Youth Highland for about 10 years. It's not been a very easy time for the voluntary youth sector, that 10 years. But I'm really proud of the work that I've managed to kind of lead in terms of voluntary youth work and community-based youth work. So Youth Highland's vision is that we believe that young people should be supported to identify and lead positive change to bring about the best outcomes in their own lives and in their communities. Our mission is that we support a network of voluntary and third sector organisations to work with young people to deliver youth work outcomes in community settings. And our work is underpinned by youth work and CLD principles and ethics. We're the only organisation in Highland currently to hold a CLD standards mark, and to do that we have to put in a large portfolio of evidence every 3 years. We've held that since 2015, and I'm really proud of that. What makes us kind of different, I suppose, is what we are here to do is to support communities to plan, deliver and respond in terms of youth work alongside local people. So we support communities to plan what their young people want to do and support that to happen in reality. That photo there is Ullapool Sea Savers, who are based in Ullapool. And our values are collaboration, inclusion, empowerment, self-determination and lifelong learning. And they are the professional CLD values across the picture. So we're a membership organisation. We've existed in Highland since 1985. We are an area association of Youth Scotland. So Youth Scotland are based in Edinburgh, but they're the national network that supports community-run, community-based youth work. So that means what I just said. So we're supporting community-led and community-run voluntary youth clubs. We have about 60 youth groups in our membership across Highland at the moment. And they run probably about 200 different youth groups between them. So there's 60 clubs and about 200 youth groups. That number has gone down since the voluntary sector was cut by 100%. So none of those groups at the moment get any funding from the local authority, and that has had an impact on the amount of voluntary youth clubs that exist in Highland communities. But within those 60 groups, there's about 150 paid staff, and we support about 300 youth work volunteers. All of the clubs have young volunteers as well. We don't keep a number of that, and I've asked my network support officer to start keeping that number. But we know that there's about 5,000 children and young people that are actively involved in those groups, and they're all between the ages of 5 and 25. So we cover play as well. And I suppose one of the most important things that we do are those two at the bottom. So we support community volunteers and community workers to take on leadership roles, but that includes kind of committees and boards of trustees who are made up of local people. and that's around looking at governance and understanding how community organisations should work. So we offer quite a lot of support to community groups around setting up organisations properly and making sure that their charitable status is correct. And that last point is around, alongside that, we support those local organisations to make sure that they've got the right policies and procedures in place, particularly around safeguarding and health and safety and risk and keeping young people safe. So in terms of Sutherland, what's it look like in Sutherland? And so this is a list of the current member clubs that we're supporting in Sutherland. So we've got Assynt Community Christian Youth Partnership, I think that stands for, Far Edge Megacaf, which Wilma's talked about a little bit, a new club, Bonar Bridge Football Club. The Kyle of Sutherland Hub is absolutely flying. The Dornoch Hub's quite a new group. Time Span is an amazing member club that has recently been sort of recognised nationally for being such a progressive and excellent organisation. I particularly like them because my first proper job was in museums. So get on really well with Fenella, who has been the youth worker there, but she's recently left. And that's actually not an unusual story within our membership. So because there is that strain on finance and on security and sustainability, we lose excellent people and we lose really excellent youth work programmes, and that's recently happened at Timespan. The bottom one there is Goldsby Youth Action Project, and some of you will also know that club has really been stretched as well over the last few years, with the building sort of almost falling into a state of disrepair, now being supported by the Development Trust to pull in funds and improve that building. But it's time consuming when you're in the voluntary sector, and young people suffer as a result of not having that facility in Goldsby. So really great to have a good list. There are groups that we have had within our membership that are no longer on that list. So we used to have a youth club in Donetsk. We've supported work in Leg in the past. And it sort of it ebbs and flows, and I think that's probably due to the financial strain on these groups. So that's what it looks like in Sutherland. I've kind of touched on the problem of finances and budget. We have been on a roller coaster since 2015. So there was a budget consultation late in 2014, which culminated in the decision to cut voluntary youth work by 100%. Youth Highland are the only organisation currently in the voluntary youth work sector receiving any funding regularly from the Highland Council, and every year we wonder, will we get it? And that's a little bit more than £13,000 a year. So that's the value of the voluntary youth work sector in Highland currently. That's difficult. And when that decision was made, we realised as an organisation we would have to act quite radically to support community-run voluntary sector youth work in Highland. So we've historically always been a membership organisation, but in 2015 we looked at what else we could do to support the wider network. And by January 2017, we'd launched what we've called the Voluntary Youth Network. I stole the idea from a person who does my job in Fife, who also has a voluntary youth network, which was very successful. So I thought, I'm having one of them. So what that did was increase the support that we could offer to third sector and voluntary sector youth groups, whether or not they were members, it didn't matter. It was a time of crisis and we needed to support the sector. And we now have more than 160 third sector organisations actively involved in that network. That's a big network. And what I would say about it is the relationships that we have with that network are very meaningful and very strong. We we know how most of those people have their coffees and teas. So we've worked very, very closely with them. And what we've done is worked strategically and I think supported strategic development for the sector in a time of financial crisis. So we now have quite a strong working strategy for the voluntary sector. That's been facilitated by Youth Highland, but very much seeing every single one of those organisations as an equal player with something valuable to bring to young people and youth work and to improve outcomes for young people. So in 2018, we had the Voluntary Youth Network agreed to a shared action plan for improvement and survival for the sector. We've been working to that plan ever since. And what that plan sort of does is recognise the importance of collaboration, recognises all of the organisations as experts in what they do, whether that be experts in their own community or experts in specific targeted work. So we've got organisations like Mikey's Line, specialist in mental health. They're a valued member club and also a partner of the VYN. But we've also got organisations like Connecting Young Carers, who specialise in supporting young carers, and Crocus Group, who specialise in supporting bereaved children and young people, and are building really strong relationships with all of them and others. The list is 160 organisations long. So what we've seen is that these organisations now are working really positively together in real partnership, not just kind of based on bringing finances into the table, but on relationships and best outcomes for young people. And that collaboration is really working. And what we're seeing as well is, I suppose, the plan is based on recognising the need for, well, I'll go through, they've kind of identified 3 priorities. The first priority was improving the mental health and well-being of young people in Highland. The second was increasing access and improving access for young people to a wide range of opportunities and learning outcomes. And the third one was about increasing the voice of all young people, particularly those with marginalised or quiet voices. And we're seeing that that is making a difference. So initially, specialist organisations were saying a lot of them are based quite centrally in Inverness or not far from there. They were saying they were really struggling to meet with and support young people further afield. So, you know, the further young people were away from that central point, the more difficult it was for those organisations to support young people. So I know Crocus were saying they had a young person in Kinloch Burvey, but that worker, it was one worker at the time, was working for Crocus. That journey and that day's work was kind of taking up a lot of space, and that young person needed more than that. So that was the main kind of challenge for specialist services, whilst community-based youth groups were saying that their main challenge was keeping the door open and being able to offer a lot of access to youth work because of the cuts. So what the plan really recognises is the need for that collaboration to increase the programme, but to support one another to offer the support that young people need. So community-based organisations are gaining a lot from support from specialist organisations and able to really provide early intervention whilst specialists can come in and out occasionally. In practice, what this has meant is that we've been able to ensure the survival of organisations despite 100% cuts to funding, and actually growth of those organisations as well. Increased collaboration has improved trust and is improving programme offer, because with trust comes better programmes. With the recognition that we need to ensure there is youth work, and we're supporting youth work in communities. That's very much a place-based and very responsive approach, which means it's quite nimble. So if a situation changes in a community, it can change, it can turn on a pin. So when COVID happened, what we really saw was some of the main clubs that we are supporting in communities were able to offer emergency resilience support very quickly, and providing food and support to kind of 200 or 300 people a day. We're seeing that through that collaboration, young people are reaching the support they need from specialists much earlier. So there's prevention and earlier intervention is happening, and we can prove it. And what we're seeing, probably due to the push on funding, is innovation and really creative ideas coming in the voluntary sector, which is very show that community-run, community-based youth work provides best value now. Some of the impact that we're able to prove as well is in this list. So we have seen Youth Highland provide training. So we deliver a range of training for young people, young volunteers, young leaders, youth workers and volunteers as an introduction to youth work, and an accredited PDA at level 6. And I've recently been taken on as the UHI CLD lecturer. So I'm really delighted with that, because that will hopefully increase access for CLD workers wherever they work and for whatever organisation to improve CLD across the region. So we deliver that, and we deliver it very responsively to the needs of the different clubs that we support. So we can see that there is now increased knowledge and skills in communities with those people that are taking on those roles in youth group. We know that the governance of community organisations and our members is improved. So we've gone through, with a fine-tooth comb really, the policies and procedures and improved boards and management committees. We've had to do that because those clubs have had to get 100% of their funding from external funders, which means that they are very much under the spotlight of those funders to ensure that that money comes in. We can prove that there's improved collaboration and partnership. I've kind of gone over that. And there's now, because the trust has been built up through that collaboration, we're seeing earlier referrals and increased numbers of referrals moving through the third sector organisations. We're really proud of a project that we've done last year, which was funded by the Youth Work Education Recovery Fund through Youth Link Scotland, where we supported our members to understand and meaningfully deliver accredited awards, and we can now prove increased attainment, particularly in areas of deprivation like Wick, Merkinch, Ballantor, places like that. You'll notice I haven't mentioned anywhere in Sutherland, and I'll go on to that in a minute. And we're seeing increased numbers of jobs in rural communities and communities recognised as SIMD as well. So we can prove that where this model is being invested in and is being worked on, the impact is really, really measurable, sustainable. It's improving people's lives. And that includes around sort of community participation and local democracy, because community members are feeling brave enough to step up and take the lead and do for themselves. So in terms of kind of strategically, I've spoken a little bit about the collaboration. I haven't really spoken very much about how that works in terms of community partnerships. So as an organisation, we saw community partnerships as really important in terms of CLD and in terms of improving community empowerment. And that's where our strategy really fitted in. So In response to the cuts and in collaboration with the voluntary sector, we recognised that it was important to support community-based youth work, and to do that we wanted to make sure that there was a high-quality youth club facility in each of the community partnerships areas across Highland. And what we hoped that would do was enable voluntary organisations to have more of an influence in decision making in those community partnership areas. So we've been really focusing on supporting youth clubs with buildings to make sure that their buildings don't fall into disarray or end up closed, and instead they're growing and improving and have got open doors more often. Those youth clubs can then include partnership programmes and bring others in to deliver, and that's what's happened. So we've been successful in growing 8 area-based area youth hubs for the voluntary sector, and they are fairly well spread. In terms of Sutherland, we've had our eyes on Goldsby Youth Action Project as the lead hub because they have the skills and they have a history in delivering that community-based youth work, and strong leaders there too, and partnerships with kind of the right people. We're waiting for that building to be finished, and we're really keen to make sure that that happens in Sutherland. What I wanted to do was show you what can happen if there is an area hub. So we've got 3 examples from other areas, but this will hopefully give you a bit of an indication about what does it mean if you've got a voluntary youth network area hub in your area. So we're looking at 3 outcomes in the next 3 slides. So Ballantor, which isn't too far away, is one of the seaboard villages just outside Tame. And historically, Ballantor, it's 20% top deprived areas on SIMD. Historically has, for years and years, run a volunteer-led summer play scheme, which mums, on the whole, have run. It's kind of historical and everybody loves it. For 13 years pre-COVID, it also had a Highland Youth Club run, I think a senior club twice a week. And COVID got this community thinking, I think. We were successful in getting some money from the Highland Council for the summer programme and gave Ballantor Youth, at that time Ballantor Play Scheme, £3,000 and said, here you go, this will make it easier to run your play scheme this year. Within about 4 weeks, they made that £18,000. And that enabled them to do a fantastic 7-week programme throughout the summer. They took on 3 young adult workers that had been through training with us previously and had 2 of them worked for Highland previously. And they ran play scheme activities, morning and afternoon, 4 days a week, and 1 morning event on the Friday morning, and they did a junior club and a senior club throughout those 7 weeks. At the end of that summer, the community was just so excited about what had happened. They didn't want to lay off the 3 workers, and they wanted to continue to see their children happily playing with each other and their older children leading and taking on leadership roles. So the community has taken on responsibility for running that themselves, and they now have, I've put 40,000 in the bank, but I think it's now 60,000 in the bank.
What are they investing in?
We help them to write funding applications, and because of where they are, their demographic, because of their history, they're funded. They've worked with more than 150 individual children and young people and continue to do that. So they now also have run, they now weekly run a junior youth club, a senior youth club, an awards club, a young parents club twice a week, a music group, and they do kind of outings and all kinds of things. It's fantastic. Local community members have stepped up on the committee, and the committee is really excitable and wants to do more. There are 2 people in significant jobs and 1 sessional worker, and the community feels a sense of belonging, ownership, and pride in what they are doing in that local community. So it's just fantastic. So in terms of youth empowerment, there's an example. The place in Allness, the Place's story is that as an organisation, the management committee has existed in Allness for about 30 or 40 years. They no longer work in partnership with High Life Highland in the local youth club, and needed to find an alternative to continue to work with young people. So during COVID, they took on, madly, if you ask me, but these are innovative thinkers, took on an enormous field which sits on the industrial estate and cleared it. It was 7 foot high in weeds when they took it on. The lease is with the council. They still pay the council £10,000 lease a year to take this field. They've cleared the field. They have services to the field, so water, sewage, electricity. They've got this enormous stretch tent in which they deliver youth work. 2 or 3 large polytunnels which they grow stuff in. They've created a fantastic seed garden full of vegetables in partnership with Feish Ross, and are just flying, but receive no core funding regionally at all. So the funding for this, the place probably costs about £200,000 a year to run, and we support them to bring that money in. But the numbers are incredible. So they work with probably around 400 children and young people in that community. And during summer play schemes, thousands of individual attendees. They have a team of 30 young leaders who've been trained, and they are active youth workers. We've trained them in introduction to youth work, first aid, games, safeguarding, and other things. And they're all taking part in accredited qualifications in that area as well. It's a fantastic project. If you go past Allness, you should pop in. Here's another one. So the Clay Studios in Merkinch, one of the 5% most deprived communities in Scotland. That's getting worse. That is not getting better. So the Clay Studio is a little shop on the high street, and they deliver a wide range of youth work sessions to a wide range of groups. The photo there is a group of young women with additional support needs and disabilities called the Butterfly Group, who work with the Clay Studio every week. And most of those girls have attained Youth Achievement Awards at level 2 to 4. The Clay Studio is possibly the most impressive in terms of delivering accredited awards, and delivers probably 60 Dynamic Youth Awards and Youth Achievement Awards every year with young people. The worker there lives locally and pays herself when she can. Yeah, really quite. And we are working really hard to try to bring in more money to enable that person to have an actual paid job in doing such fantastic work. So also wanted to just talk about 3 projects that we've done with the Voluntary Youth Network and the hubs. So we're really focusing on supporting these local hubs in the community partnership areas, sort of encouraging local leadership rather than centralising our own sort of thing. So there's 3 projects I just wanted to touch on. So the last 2 years, we've been really delighted to gain some funding from the Summer of Hope money through the council. So the first year we got 60,000, and last year we got 80,000, and we shared that between some of our sort of clubs. So last year we supported 13 organisations. That's 8 of the area hubs and some other organisations, which included SNAP, which is a group that works with disabled young people, and groups that work with climate and environment, and so a wide range of young people. Those groups were able to deliver sort of 400 sessions over the 6 weeks, and worked with many young people, 12,000 attendances, young people come back. We've seen referrals from social work, where young people from social work just keep coming back. And through that, we've been able to see outcomes like increase of 30 new jobs within the sector. The problem then is keeping those people in those jobs, because that's not permanent funding. But every time we get it, we are able to bring in significant match funding. Youth Highland has got really, really good relationships with external funders, to the point where we have had funders come to us and try to negotiate up to £500,000 to boost youth work funding for the voluntary sector. But we haven't been successful in negotiating that with the council. Accredited awards. I touched on that we got the Youth Work Education Recovery funding a couple of years ago. So in 2020, in Highland, across youth work organisations, there were 20 Dynamic Youth Awards and 4 Youth Achievement Awards delivered in the whole of Highland for all of us. Those numbers are significantly rising as a result of the Youth Work Education Recovery Fund. So both High Life Highland and the Voluntary Youth Network had some money for that. So the 60,000 that we had, we shared with 5 hubs, and we piloted real support for youth workers, and each of the hubs identified a worker that could be an awards worker. And as a result of that, we are delivering more than 400 awards, and I believe, and I need to maybe clarify this, because my awards person who counts the awards always tells me off. There are more than 400 that have been, young people have been doing. I believe we've got more than 300 of those have been assessed and have passed. So that's great, because it means that in an area or region where accreditation and attainment is a real priority here, we're seeing that community organisations are able to really, really make a difference in terms of young people's learning and qualifications. And what I would sort of mirror that Wilma was saying was, a lot of young people are finding school and formal education really difficult after COVID. So this is a really good bridge back into learning, and we're seeing that it's succeeding. And we've got a couple of projects that have been really successful in terms of youth voice. So everyone should have been sent a copy of the Where's Your Head At book that we made last year during the lockdown. And then we've also received funding from Creative Scotland to do a film project, which we took on tour last year around a number of communities. So I can send links to both of those things out to all of you. But they've been really exciting projects in terms of getting young people excited and more involved in making decisions and having a voice. We're really delighted to be holding about £60,000 or £70,000 from 3 different funders that is going to be used in a participatory budgeting way with young people. So we're beginning to get applications through from young people, and that's about youth-led projects across communities. So young people from Sutherland can definitely benefit from that and start maybe a seed of kind of what they want in their communities in Sutherland. So this slide just tells you how our strategy and our work aligns to regional and national priorities. So in terms of the Highland Outcome Improvement Plan, CLD plan, Integrated Children's Plan, and wider sort of national youth work strategies and stuff like that. These are the things we're kind of hitting. So community empowerment, attainment, tackling poverty and inequality, building the local economy, skills development and employability, asset growth and tourism, and human rights are the areas that we're really, really confident that we're delivering on. In terms of funding, I suppose, really quickly, because I'm looking at the time thing, I've been talking for ages. In 2018, we did an impact report of our network, and we estimated at that time that the organisations that are on that network, so we've now got about 160, are probably worth between £7 and £10 million to the regional economy per year. That's not just like our little youth clubs, that includes bigger organisations like Eden Court within our network and stuff like that. But it's a large amount of money, and I suppose what we're endlessly concerned about is that those organisations are always under threat. But what we can show and prove is that we do have the leverage to bring in more, a lot more. So for the £13,000 that we get from the local authority at Youth Highland then makes that 130,000 for Youth Highland, but I also then write many applications that brings a lot of other money in, so easily up to £500,000 that I write, but there's people in all of those clubs writing their own as well. So yeah, what do we do about that, I suppose, is my question. What I would like to see, I suppose, is an ability for more work to be done to increase that community-led approach, which will leverage in more of that money and see community empowerment happening and some of those outcomes. So I would like to see Golspie YMCA, that community building, finished and being used by young people and the wider community. I would like to see, I'd like us to support the establishment of a Sutherland Voluntary Youth Network area hub in this area, because I think it would make a massive difference in terms of outcomes. I would like to stabilise the youth work programme at Timespan, because that is under great threat at the moment. The money's gone and the work has gone, and it's been making a massive difference. I'd like to see and continue to develop the work in Kyle of Sutherland's hub in Brora, and I'd like to help communities to review and revive their lost community-based youth clubs. So places like Durness, Lerg, Embo, we've recently seen our old member club move out of Embo's cafe. So there's all these opportunities that we see kind of running through our fingers as a result of this lack of communication and partnership with the council, and we really need to sort it out. So this is the action that I would like. I would like there to be a review of youth work spend, and I would like that to recognise the need of community run and supported provision. That needs to be a really honest, caring, kind conversation with all of us to ensure and base it on the best outcomes for children and young people and nothing else. I'd like to see that spend really align with the development of community partnerships and locality plans. That makes sense strategically. And I would like it to recognise how much management and coordination for youth work should cost. And my final point really there is we need to trust, but we need to resource communities. Communities are amazing, and they are full of very capable people with drive and skills and potential, but we need to trust them. And then just the last slide there is, if you want to know anything else, how to get in touch with me. Sorry, I went on as well. You think like, don't you? I read it this morning, thought that's 10 minutes. Sorry. Am I bringing it with me?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. It's really appreciate it. It was very comprehensive, and it's interesting to see how much work is actually going on in the third sector for youth activities. And what strikes me is what we could benefit, what we could gain from closer collaboration between the third sector and Highland. I know Highland are technically the third sector, but there are connections there that we need to be very clear about. And I think we could definitely be. I mean, Highland is providing a more formal kind of network, whereas the Youth Highland is community-led, which would be good.
but there's a combination and a collaboration there that could benefit everybody so much more, in my opinion. And I think that going forward, I'd like to see that. Just a couple of questions for you, Claire, before I open up to everybody else. Staffing, you talked about staffing. I mean, are you mainly working with volunteers in the communities, or are you working with paid staff in the various locations?
It's a real mix. So our team has got 5 members of staff at Youth Highland, so 2 of us are full-time and the others are part-time. That's a lot of work. And I suppose in terms of where we are is because we don't have our core funding, much of our funding is project funding, which means that we've got people doing core work and project work, and that's very exhausting. That's the same in communities, actually. So what we've got currently within our membership, and I can only really talk about our membership because that's the data that we collect, is about 150 paid staff within that membership across the region, and 300-ish significant volunteers delivering youth work. All of those clubs also have active management committees. They will be volunteers that currently aren't counted within that 300, and there's young leaders as well who currently aren't counted. But there's 150 jobs there, and what I would say is during that last 10 years, we have endlessly seen people losing their jobs and moving. My organisation has to quite regularly issue potential, like you might end up leaving. So we're doing that regularly, and I think so that happens also within our members. And where there are significant paid roles within our membership, I know that there are incidences where some of those people go months sometimes without paying themselves while they're waiting for funding to come in. That isn't sustainable, and a lot of those people are professional people with significant years of experience and qualifications behind them. So we're not in a fair or sustainable situation, I suppose, is what I would say, and it's been a long time that it's been like that.
Right, thanks for that. Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting that staffing is an issue for Highland, and it's across the board. I think it also leads into a wider issue of the depopulation that we're experiencing, because we're not investing in our communities, and more importantly, investing in our youth. Then that will drive that depopulation even further, which is a real concern. So it's a big question, and a room for a lot of debate in that respect. Okay, I'll open up to everybody else. Members, any questions for Claire?
Just a quick comment from myself. That was very informative and very thought-provoking.
Thank you.
And just to say that you're very much now on my radar.
You mentioned them, boys.
Shame.
Yeah. Any members online? Any comments or any questions?
Just thanks for the presentation. The one thing that sticks out from a Northwest point of view is you can't do anything without people, and that's where we are just now. So, but thanks for the presentation anyway. So.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I don't see anybody else wanting any questions, so thank you very much indeed.
Can I say, apart of what you just said about retaining young people, I suppose my new role at UHI in sort of lecturing with CLD is quite interesting. And there are so the Youth Highland has delivered a PDA in youth work a number of times. And that is costly to do. So without a doubt, it costs probably £9,000 or £10,000 to run a PDA. Participants for a PDA are required really to have some experience in delivering youth work and a placement, because the assessments for that are around their own reflective practice in practice. Now, UHI, I know, have just advertised a PDA and nobody's taken it up because it costs £500 to do it. And when you're looking at the voluntary sector's situation, the voluntary sector are struggling to pay running costs and core costs, which means that investing in their own professional development is really difficult. So what Youth Highland has done in the past is try to cover the cost of some of that. That means we're delivering it voluntarily, which isn't brilliant, but we have seen that where we've done that, the increase in interest in the professional practice is better, and the practice is better. So it's really, really important, I think, that we're investing in learning and professional development. What UHI have now said is that they would like to now deliver the PDA for young people, senior pupils. And for me, I'm kind of like, I think that that is a really positive first move in trying to get young people. We have loads of young people who are very active in youth work settings and in their communities. And that's a really good way to get young people involved in local democracy and decision making and being much more actively involved as citizens, which is brilliant. But I suppose there's this kind of need to balance this and make sure that young people are supported properly, supervised. We need to make sure that the youth workers that are in communities are capable and confident in supervising, and we may then maintain and retain young people. But if there is, and time again, I speak to young people and they're like, you know, there is nothing for me. They're stuck in jobs, cleaning or in a shop or in, you know, hospitality, which is in and out. We need to be developing that. And I think CLD isn't only just kind of youth work, it's also about, you know, we can work with young people to develop social enterprises and increase the capacity of their communities. So CLD isn't just about putting young people in a room and keeping them contained, it's about enabling young people to be really active citizens within their communities and want to and love them and want to stay there. So we need to support young people with their ideas.
It's a big question, a big debate that we can have on that.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we could speak about it all day, I'm sure, but we have a big agenda.
No, that's fine. That's brilliant. Thank you.
Listen, thank you very much for attending.
Thank you for having us.
And for your, that's been really, really interesting. Thank you very much indeed.
Yeah. Okay, members, moving on, and
Thank you.
we have the benefit of Lola, we are just changing speakers at the moment.
Hi, Chair. Just as a reminder for members to speak up to be able for us in Teams to get accurate notes for the minute, because the sound is not the best. Thank you.
Thanks, Lola. We're struggling with one very small microphone here, and it's been passed around the room.
It's been passed around, right? I shall try and speak clearly.
I'll stand here.
Thank you.
I just welcome Peter Facenda from Focus North, who's going to give us a latest update and share some information with us. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you. That doesn't seem to be coming up. Do I need to do something?
Take care.
Well, that's your laptop.
Oh, so it's not. Okay, let me see if I can figure out how to. Can I move it over? Oh, has that just gone up? That's weird.
Yeah, it might be that you've got to scroll through your.
I got to do something with
Your outputs.
Settings. System.
Maybe I need to press this button again, huh? No DVI is it. It's your output, I think.
Probably got to scroll through one of those F buttons.
That one?
Unplug and replug.
Yeah, let's try that.
Technology.
Don't we just love it?
I'm a big fan of gaming paper.
This thing isn't detecting. Oh, there we go.
Right, back to your desktop.
Okay. That must be another desktop because there we go.
There you are.
Yeah,
Okay, across when you
I can, but it won't go.
try F5.
F5. I don't think it was that one.
F5 gets a full screen PowerPoint.
alternate 5. Alternate 5. Is it alternate 5, is it?
That's something.
The PowerPoint now, if you click on that, click off it, go in at the bottom of the screen.
There we go. Okay, now all I need to do is remember how to do that the next time. Otherwise, I don't know what I did. Perfect. Okay, thank you very much. Good morning again, everyone. Beautiful agenda, as most of you I think are already aware. Focus North, I just want to give you an update and just ask for support on the sort of final version of where we've got to with this. I've got quite a truncated presentation because I've been through a lot of this with you already, but obviously if there's any points that anybody's unclear about or wants clarification on, then just please shout up. Okay, so the evolution has been, Caithness North Sutherland Regeneration Partnership was established back in 2007. It's been successfully operating since then. More recently, various things have changed. Its original remit was very much focused on Dounreay and its decommissioning schedule. A lot has changed in the interim with, and been very, in terms of Dounreay decommissioning, hasn't gone to the schedule that was expected in 2007. There is, there's still an ongoing review of the ongoing programme, which will complete in March time. It will then go through government approvals and a new, it's not being described as a lifetime plan anymore, but a new route map to decommissioning will be launched, if you like, in 2024. So that's changed. We've had COVID, we've had Brexit, we've had climate crisis that's increasingly urgent. So a lot of things have changed. So we, the middle of last year, about June time, we set up on a process to revise the remit and approach that we were taking as CNSRP as it was then. And we set up a series of workshops. I updated you on that back in, I think it was October time, but we talked it through. And we're now in a situation where, we effectively come to an agreement. We've done a lot of stakeholder engagement, taken on board a lot of what people have said about what they think we should be doing. And so our new approach, if you like, is much more concentrating on the immediate opportunities, because there are a huge number of those, and our goals are built around economic growth. It was really interesting, really exciting to hear about all that youth work that's being done, but obviously you can't do youth work if there's no youth, and so our concentration is on the economic development side of things and trying to maximise the benefits for our area of the literally billions of pounds that are going to be invested around the coasts and throughout the Highlands on infrastructure projects that are, that are going on, and we don't want them just to happen to us. We want to make sure that we're part of that process. What's really important in this review has also been that we want to make sure that all the partners are engaged and collaborating as much as we possibly can, because exactly in the same way as the previous speakers were talking about the pressures on the third sector, the public sector is under equally great pressure, and for us to do some of the developments in our communities that we're going to want to do, we need to leverage private sector investment. So that's really key. We want to make sure that what we're said we're going to do, we're going to make it very clear what we're trying to achieve, we're going to measure it, and we're going to tell everybody how we're doing. We agreed a new identity, Focus North, which I've already talked to you about, and you see the logo there. That's we've took a bit of time to get to that identity, but we're already seeing that people, when you speak to them, it's much clearer what we're trying to do here. It's focus on the north. It's memorable, it states our intent, and it asks other people to look here. This is where the opportunities are. It also complements existing initiatives. It's descriptive and not prescriptive about the boundary. We've discussed that previously. I'm not going to go through this in detail because we've already covered it, but it's largely saying that we're aiming at economic growth, support it in people and communities, partnership effectiveness and sustainability. So those are our key goals. The bit that I really want to just touch on specifically here and seek support and encouragement and endorsement from you is about the partnership chart. It's about that understanding that for this to work, the partners really do need to commit to working to it and recognise that sometimes that means sharing more than is perhaps has been done in the past, and sharing goals, resources and approaches so that we absolutely maximise the best we can for our area. So really what I'm just asking for today is to endorse that approach, and particularly, you know, the council's commitment to it. We're really keen that the council is a core partner in this, and that the political voice of the council is included in these discussions, and mainly around, you know, about goals and prioritisation. So as these are developed and we're working on them, to have an input to that and engage in that process of goal setting and reviewing and seeing what we could be doing differently and better. So that's pretty much all I was asking for today. Any questions, queries, or whatever? Do you want me to move up and? Yes, okay, I'll take the microphone with me. Yeah. There we go. Okay.
Thank you for that, Peter. That's really appreciated. I mean, we are familiar with a lot of the aims that you've had before. We've met you a few times now, and it's really interesting to get that update. And I'd like to see the use of the focus north, because I think, as you said before, the previous name for the organisation was a bit of a mouthful.
It was a bit of a mouthful.
Yeah.
And you often found yourself for the first 5 minutes of the conversation explaining what that meant, whereas it pretty much says what
it's quite straightforward.
Yeah.
For that. Personally, I'm delighted to see that they focus on energy, particularly with the energy hydrogen production. I think there's real opportunities there, and in terms of the excess electricity we produce that we can't actually put in the grid, having that ability to divert it into hydrogen production, I think is a real game changer for this part of the world.
Yeah.
And I think we have opportunities there. You talked about the route map to decommissioning. When decommissioning has been ongoing for quite a long time now, as we know.
Indeed.
So, is there a target date for the final, the door to be shut and say,
well, the current date that's in the public domain is around the early 2030s, early to mid 2030s. I don't think anybody believes that is a realistic date based on where we are today. But there's no revision to that. Obviously, they're a partner organisation. I speak with them. I'm involved in some discussions about various bits and pieces on social economics, but I'm not party to the discussions. I know that their process is they're currently going through a review of their operations on the site, because there's some quite complex decommissioning issues still to be dealt with. That will be put into I believe, a series of options that will be put effectively to ministers or into the process for approval from April of this year. They're expecting that to take some time to come to, and the site anticipates to be launching that plan, whatever it is finally agreed as, in 2024. There's a short-term work plan which is being worked on, which has got some specific activities that the site is working very hard on, and then in 2024 the new plan will come out. I think the reason they're using the expression a route map is because it's in a complex process like the decommissioning process, where some of the stuff has never been done by anybody ever before. It's actually quite difficult to say exactly what that's going to take, because maybe some of it they're not quite absolutely certain what needs to be done until they start to do it.
I think I know that currently Dunray are still offering very high quality apprenticeships at the moment to youngsters.
Yeah.
And I really hope that the work that you're doing will be able to continue that drive to high quality jobs and apprenticeships.
Yeah.
With the projects you've got going here, and that's hopefully
Yes.
nicely sideways.
You look. I mean, one of the focuses, as I say, has been very much on what the site is doing, but actually, it's great that they're continuing to employ both apprentices and graduates. They've got great programs running, and we hope that continues. But we've also got other potential employers in the region. We've got, Pentland Offshore Wind. We've got the West of Orkney offshore wind farm. Where we need to make sure that those organisations have the opportunities to employ local people with apprenticeships and graduate traineeships and so on. The spaceport, similarly, the hydrogen production that's happening. We've got the potential for hydrogen-powered trains in 2024 being trialled between Thurso and Wick. There's already hydrogen trials going on with small aircraft. The Highlands would be a perfect place to set up. We've got short haul flights. We've got a relatively low population, small aircraft, in other words.
Yeah.
Be a great place to develop those technologies, and the project that goes between Orkney and Wick, which is the sustainable air transport test environment, is a great place to develop. So there's a huge number of opportunities, and we need to make sure that we're concentrating on all of these opportunities and not just on the legacy things that are, have been very good and continue to be good.
I think there are opportunities there for high technology type work going on, and I think we've got to grasp that.
Yeah.
It's really important. And I think, while I know that you're looking at Keith and North Sutherland, that can roll over into the rest of Sutherland and the Highlands, the wider Highlands going forward. So I think that what you're doing could lead the way in an awful lot, definitely. So thank you very much for that.
Okay.
Well, that's all I've got to say. So I'll throw it to members.
Chip in, thank you. Opportunity Cromarty first.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So we're going to see some spin-offs from into focused on.
Well, what you've got there is a fantastic. It's fantastic that that's come to the Highlands. It really is. That's going to have a lot of technologies being developed in it that are also going to be, so whether it's first developed in Gordon Bush, or it's first developed in actually at the port, as it were, there'll be hydrogen production being done. There are probably other potential sites where hydrogen production can be established. So those technologies, it'd be great to be at the leading edge of these technologies rather than always importing them. So that's a fantastic opportunity. So having a critical mass of skills and activity is always one of our challenges. And so having a hub like that operating that's going to have those sorts of people has got to benefit everybody.
Just on another question then, you have all the sort of skills from engineering scientists, what have you, that are doing the Dunray decommissioning, but do you see a way forward for this fission bit from Rolls-Royce that are doing the mini nuclear?
There's the type of reactors that Rolls-Royce are talking about are actually small modular reactors. They're not fission. They're fission, not fusion. Obviously. Currently, Scottish Government policy is not to have new fission-related reactors in Scotland. So I think it's unlikely.
How long was Dunray actually operational for?
Oh, I don't know off the top of my head.
Way back in the 50s.
Was it? Yeah, it was the 50s, but I couldn't tell you exactly. 56 or something.
And when was the decommissioning commenced?
I think the last of it was in the 90s.
Okay, so potentially the decommissioning is going to take longer than the actual operational.
I guess it could be.
So why would you invest in something like that? Sorry.
I have a question altogether, but we're looking at more the opportunities.
And
Yeah, plus, yeah, but I get your point. Okay, any members, any other questions?
The Focus North Conference that's happening.
Yes, sorry,
Yes.
that was
On
really
the
bad that I
8th.
haven't promoted that too.
Yes.
Is that going to be talking about the opportunities?
It's exactly that. It's effective. So the Focus North Conference, which I should have plugged, and I know you've all been invited, and hope you can attend. But it's going to be talking about opportunities in space, opportunities in hydrogen, opportunities in tourism. What else have we got? We've also got a speaker coming to talk to us about how Jacob's going to help us to just look at how they have had interaction to other areas, so that they can, they can bring some learnings to that. And we're talking about opportunities in education. So, it's very much about focused. It's a Focus North launch. There's really actually look at the opportunities here. That's the push for the whole thing. It's to try and raise the area's profile. So we've got national and international journalists.
I think certainly what I'm finding is a new councillor, that things happen when we work more closely together rather than all little people working in silos. So I think that's probably a good way to start, to try and get everybody to work together.
Yeah, absolutely. And everybody's resources are increasingly stretched. I was on a call yesterday about the west of Orkney wind farm, and that is obviously, their stakeholder engagement team is about 6 people. It tells you the size of the project. It's in terms of the the scale of these things. I think it's still early days. They're not planning on building until 2029 or thereabouts. 2027 with Power 29. But they're already, here we are, 2023, and there's already a big team of people working on it. There's a lot of design happening. There's already environmental work being done. There's a vast amount. So there's huge opportunity.
They would have learned a lot as well from the Beatrice wind farm, I'd imagine.
Yes, yeah. And obviously Pentland Offshore Wind is going to be a floating offshore wind platform. There's a massive amount of research and knowledge that needs to be achieved to operate a floating offshore wind farm, because it's got some very different challenges to the fixed bottom stuff. So there's an opportunity right off our coast in the north. It's an opportunity for us to be world leading in some of those technologies, rather than importing.
We have the capabilities. Scottish people are very adaptable and
absolutely
inventive.
If we can tap into our natural resources, I think that's
that's important as well.
Any other questions, Jim?
Is there a motion for us here, Chair, or do we just agree to endorse the initiative?
Well, I've got the recommendations in a minute. That's why we want to give everybody a chance to speak. Hugh and Marianne, have you got any comments you'd like to make?
No, nothing from me, Chair. Just thanks for the report. That's all. Thank you.
No, thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, members. Now, unusually, we have recommendations here, but these recommendations aren't from our officers, but they're coming from Peter and his associates. So I'm just going to read them out what they are, and we can see if we can agree. We've been asked to note the recent review and rebranding of the Focus North Partnership, and also to express the committee's support for the Focus North Master Plan and structure and Council's role in the partnership. I think we have done that. Have we agreed? Agreed. Okay, that's fine. Thank you very much. Well, thank you, Peter, for coming along today. And I apologise, it was rather a long wait.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, members. Do we have people waiting?
Yep, we've now got housing.
The queue, is there?
The garage, Colin Sharp, and Marina. Marina's on the screen.
Hello, Marina. How are you?
Morning, members, or afternoon actually now.
Sorry for keeping you waiting. We've had
Quite a in-depth meeting today. So, members, we have Marina and Colin, is it online, to talk about the housing revenue account, garage rents, and there is a report that you have. I'll refer you to that.
Yeah, so members, the housing report asks for members' consideration and approval for this year's garage and site rent increases. The report sets out details of the current occupancy levels along with the rent increase proposals. Members are asked to consider an increase of 3, 5 or 7%. Housing's recommendation is an increase of 7%, which is below the current rate of inflation. If I could draw your attention to section 6.3 of the report, this item provides the detail of the proposed increases. For example, a 3% increase for a garage for a council tenant in Ward 1 would be 22 pence per week. A 5% increase would be 36 pence per week, and a 7% increase would be 51 pence per week. That's approximately £2.04 per month. Excuse me. The intention is that the extra income will be used to ensure essential repairs are carried out to garages in the Sutherland area. We're happy to take any questions.
Thanks for that, Marina. Yeah, a couple of questions from me. I noticed that we have a number of garages and garage sites still void, and I'm also concerned a little bit about the current maintenance programs for the garages. I have had anecdotally information that a lot of garages are in a very poor state of repair, asbestos roofs, etc., etc. Can you give us an update on, or perhaps Colin might be better placed to give us an update on the actual quality of our portfolio of garages in the area, please?
You're welcome in there, thank you very much. We have a number of reports on the RAG ratings, red, amber, green, on garages, and a number have been identified as being red and all through the board. What we're intending to do is any income generated from garage rental in the following financial year will be ring-fenced solely for repairs to garages within the Sutherland area. That should hopefully generate us somewhere in the region of £38,000 to £40,000 in budget for garage works. We can then going to identify the areas where there is a high demand or there is demand for garages and concentrate the efforts to bring those properties up to a lettable standard so we can get them out and review where we have low or no demand in other garage sites and make a determination from there whether to dispose or carry out works through member involvement. Our current budget for this financial year was £3,800, to which we are currently overspent on that budget.
Okay, thanks for that, Colin. Members, any questions? We'll move on to discuss the increase. No? Councillor Beard?
The points that I raised with you with the corner bridge, can we take that on board?
At the car park?
Yes.
Well, this is
purely the garages.
But the garages involved, they're not? No.
Not
Okay.
Okay. Right. Okay, members, we're given three options here. Although we can work somewhere in between, we don't have to accept the options that are given to us. We can amend in to decide what we want to put in. And what I'm going to say, I'll start it off. I'm happy to open up debate. Certainly, I think I'm very conscious of the pressures on households at the moment, for one reason or another, and we know that we're living in a cost of living crisis. And I accept that the rate of inflation is running around about 10% and above at the moment. But I'm very conscious that I don't want to put any additional pressures on households that I can avoid doing. What I'm going to propose as an amendment to the recommendation is that we set our garage rent at a level of 4%. I think that's slightly above the 3%, obviously, but I think it reflects our consideration of the pressures that are being put on households generally, and I think that, to me, that is a reasonable figure. That's relevant, yeah. So that's my proposal, but I'm happy to listen to anybody else's opinion and any counter proposal that may want to come.
I think that's a fair compromising situation. Yeah. I think I've got to be aware of the financial pressures on our tenants.
Thank you for that.
I was just about to say the same, actually.
Okay, we have consensus face to face. Online councillors, what's your thoughts, please?
Yeah, I'm happy to go with that, Chair. Thank you.
Councillor Hutchinson, any comments?
I think I'm outnumbered anyway, but I would have probably agreed to it being higher.
But you're welcome to put a proposal forward. That's if you can get a seconder, that's fine.
No, I would have gone with the recommendation, just given the nature of just the use of garages that I see, and just from talking with people about this locally, that would have been my view. But yes, I'm willing to abstain or whatever. I'm not going to put forward an amendment.
Okay, thank you. Okay, members, my proposal is that we set an increase of 4% for the garage sites and for the garages. I think we have a consensus. Yeah. Okay. Colin and Marina, that's been carried that we'll go with 4%. I recognise that the recommendation of 7%, and I do understand that the thinking behind that, but given the cost of living crisis, I think that we are in a good place to set at 4%. So thank you very much indeed for your time today, and sorry for keeping you waiting.
No problem. Thank you, members.
Thank you. Thank you very much, members, for your time.
Okay. Okay, members, moving on. I can find the right document here.
So, Paul is on.
Hello, Paula. How are you?
Hello, members. How are you? Good afternoon.
Thank you very much for waiting. It's you've probably been hanging around for quite a while, so thank you very much. It's really appreciated. Okay, members, we have the Community Regeneration Fund assessment of applications, and Paula's here to go through that with us today. Thank you. On you go, Paula.
Thank you, Chair. The Community Regeneration Funding is an umbrella term for several funds that are available for communities and organisations to bid into in Highland. It includes the Highland Coastal Communities Fund and the Place-Based Investment Programme, both of which are Scottish Government funding streams to support economic regeneration and sustainable development. Area committees are awarded devolved allocations according to an approved formula, and decision making on which projects should receive funding sits with elected members. Within Sutherland, the following area allocations are currently available for distribution. The Highland Coastal Communities Fund is for capital and revenue projects, and that's £683,408.23. And the Place-Based Investment Programme is for capital projects only, and that's £85,200. So that means the total funds available currently is £768,608.23 in Sutherland. So today there are 17 applications under consideration with a combined grant request of £698,612.71. I'd like to note that this amount is different than what is currently noted in the committee paper, but I will explain why a bit further along. So the Community Regeneration Funding team have undertaken technical assessments on all of the projects presented today, and I can confirm that all of these are technically eligible. We have provided a RAG assessment of the key criteria to help members with their decision making today. I would like to note that the RAG assessment has been undertaken on information presented to us by the applicant during the application process. Where a project has been given a red or amber against any of the criteria, this does not reflect an eligibility issue. It just flags up some outstanding requirements. For example, if they've applied for match funding or any planning consents and they just have not been approved yet, or perhaps the application was just lacking in some detail. So if members wish to approve any of the projects that have a red or an amber, then we usually would seek to address some of these by applying technical additions to any of the funding awards. This is especially important for the red ratings. Members are asked today to whether to approve, defer or reject the applications, and in the case of approvals to agree the grant award amounts and any specific conditions that you would like to include over above than the technical assessment. I also like to update members with regards to some changes in the committee papers. So item 2.1 of the report, where it notes the recommendation, the paper should state that the funding will be awarded from the Community Regeneration Fund and not specifically from the Highland Coastal Communities Fund. And also, as members are aware, within the umbrella term of the Community Regeneration Funding, we also administer the Community-led Local Development Fund on behalf of the Highland Strategic LAG. We now have met with the LAG and they have agreed the final grant awards from this fund, and this represents an additional investment of £326,008.86 to projects in Sutherland. As such, this has reduced the total grant requests from the local funds for the following projects. 1042, the Community Care Ascents, the Art Sessions. 1041, Community Care Ascents, the Warm Hub project. 1052, Melness Croftus Estates, affordable housing development. 1208, the Dornoch Area Community Company, the Community Transport Project. 1069, the Dornoch Firth Group, and 1099, the Brora Development Group for the Visit Information Points. I will update the new grant figures as I present the projects for consideration. Has anybody got any questions so far? Shall I move on to presenting the applications? Or
no questions from me, Paula. Any members? No. Please carry on.
Okay, so I will run through the summary RAG assessment sheet where it lists all the projects individually. I will give a brief description of the project and confirm the total grant request they're requesting today from the area budget, and I will just flag up any issues that's arisen from the assessment criteria. So the first one on the list is the 1042, and that's the Community Care Ascents project for the arts and crafts wellbeing sessions. So this project has been awarded the CLLD funding, so that means the request to the area budget is now less. So I can confirm they're requesting 866,000 from the area budget today. So this project is to provide 2 3-hour activity sessions a week for 1 year with a focus on introducing new arts and crafts skills and opportunities for older adults. These sessions will be facilitated by staff and local artisans and volunteers and service users. They've got match funding in place. They're going to be using existing staff, so there's no recruitment required. In terms of engagement and support, they scored slightly lower. They just didn't just go highly in that one. There was 1 letter of support provided, and just some anecdotal evidence there in terms of engagement and support. The project doesn't specifically meet the environmental sustainability. However, they have explained, what they are doing as an organisation to mitigate the environmental impact on projects. Has anybody got any questions?
No, at the moment, no, thank you.
Okay. Shall I move on to the second one, and then we'll run through them again to approve, defer or reject them, or shall we do them one by one?
If you can run through them all, Paula, and then we can have a discussion about them at that point, if that's okay.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So the next project on the list is from the Highland Council, and this is the Achmelvik Beach and Car Park project. So this is quite a big development. So this is over £1 million development in the area. So they are looking to expand the current car park at Achmelvik because it's just not fit for purpose anymore. So they're hoping to increase the car parking spaces from 40 spaces to 78, and they will include disabled parking spaces and spaces for motorhomes. They will also build a new toilet and shower block facility and put some interpretation boards and new bins, etc. So there'll be better visitor resources there. So they have substantial match funding in place. So they've been awarded £1 million from ARTIF, and also they have a 3,000 loan awarded as well, or approved. They do have planning in place. However, they do need to apply for the building warrant, but that's only specifically for the toilet block. But they could start the project where they can start constructing the car park. It was, in the scope, so that's why the project was scored slightly lower in the project robustness, because they although they can start the car park, they just need to get the warrants for the toilet block. So just mark down slightly on environmental standards because it is ultimately a construction project. They were hoping to install EV charging points, however, I think they're just going to do that at a later round. So the Highland Council will maintain the site, and the income generated will be reinvested to maintain the site and employ a cleaner, for example, and any additional income will be reinvested into other tourism projects. So the next project on the list is from the Lochinver Primary Parent Council, and they would like to install a new play park. So this will be wooden play equipment, and the group have done really well to fundraise towards the project. I'd just like to point out that the match funding is currently not in place. They're waiting to hear back from the Assynt Crofters Trust. So there's some match funding requirements outstanding there. They've already got detailed quotations, that they've selected the equipment that they'd like to purchase. There's just some queries in terms of legacy and exit strategy, just to see whether the Highland Council could maintain the play equipment on behalf of the group, because it is within the school grounds, and it just means that they'll get regular inspections. And also just scored a bit down on the equalities, because I'm not sure if any of the play equipment is suitable for wheelchair uses, for example. However, they've scored really well in the environmental sustainability because they are using wood, so that's a sustainable material. Right, so the next project is another play park. So this application is from the Helmsdale and District Development Fund. Again, they've done really, really well to fundraise towards the project. So they've fundraised nearly £12,000. This is a replacement of the play park in the village. So the current one is just no longer fit for purpose. I believe some of the play equipment has been condemned, so it's not safe anymore. And they have stated in the application they do want to install accessible play equipment to make it inclusive. And they've also done some consultation work with local children to agree designs and the type of play equipment that they would like to go for. So I've marked them down slightly on project robustness. However, it's just because they've stated that they need to get some agreements from some access agreements from the Highland Council. However, they also say that the Highland Council are going to manage the site for them. However, that agreement has not been is not in place at the minute. So that will need a condition on the project. That's it for that one. So the next project is from the Dornoch Area Community Interest Company. So this is for the multi-use games area, the MUGA. So yeah, this is a new facility on the South Dornoch site. As you may know, the site was purchased a few years ago from the group, and they've done quite a bit of work down there at the minute. So they've completed the car park, and this MUGA is their next big project that they'd like to develop. So the MUGA will be suitable to play five-a-side football, tennis, basketball, cricket, and also they'd like to install some floodlighting. So the MUGA will be delivered in 2 parts. They would also like to put in a synthetic ice rink, so they're just going to deliver that at a later stage. So they're seeking £63,986 from the area funds. So not all of the match funding is confirmed, although they have secured 100,000 so far, and they will find out over the next week or so if they've been successful with the Common Good Fund. They do have planning in place, but I just need to check if they need a warrant. I suspect they don't, but just to get clarification around that. And the group have explained that the income that they will generate will help towards the maintenance of the MUGA, and people will be able to book online and go to the hub and go there in person to book the facilities. So the next project is the Community Care Asset, the core management project. So they're seeking 16,500 from the area funds. So this is a continuation of core staffing. The group are struggling with funding because they've seen a reduction in the NHS grant. And yeah, it's well documented, there's just pressure with budgets across the board and obviously with inflation. So this application is specifically to fund the centre manager for the next 12 months. So again, yeah, existing staff in place, so no recruitment. They've got their match funding confirmed. Just mark them down slightly for the exit strategy because they'll, if they're awarded CRF funding, then they will face the same dilemma in 12 months. However, they will have 12 months to try, to come up with a plan, ways forward. And again, I just marked them slightly down on the environmental sustainability. Again, it's not a reflection on the organisation. It's just the project, and they have explained the wider work they do as an organisation to mitigate this. So the next project is from the Cull, Rain and District Hall Committee. So this is a part of a wider, bigger project. So it's for a hall extension and refurbishment of the current hall. So it's part of a £500,000 improvement project. Again, they're going to be completing this in smaller phases. So the existing hall is just outdated, no longer fit for purpose. They'd like to completely remodel it and make sure it meets environmental standards. They'd also like to build an extension so they can house a cafe, kitchen and a bunkhouse. So there'll be a bit of an income stream there for them. However, the first phase, which is this application, they need to put a new roof on the existing hall. And also they need to install an external ramp and put in some disabled toilets. And they're seeking 45,000 from the area funds. So in terms of the technical assessment, they do have planning in place. However, they didn't note in the application if the warrant has been applied for. And if they needed to put in the roof. Match funding is confirmed, and in terms of the other criteria where there's an amber, they've just limited information, and they just didn't quite explain when they're hoping to do the next phase of the project, and who are the likely funders that they will approach to deliver the entire project. So the next project is another project from the Community Care Ascent. So this project's been awarded the CLLD funding. So the request to area funds has gone down. So they are requesting 4,856 and 55 pence. So this is to extend the opening hours and increase the current staff time so they can use the facility as a warm hub. And there's some small costs towards furniture. They'd like to just do a bit of refurbishment work so they can have a quiet space to accommodate more people to the centre. So again, straightforward project. So yeah, they will increase the existing staff hours, so no recruitment required. You'll see in the RAG status, I've scored them a red against match funding. This is not a reflection, again, on the application. Usually, if a project has match funding in place, we would give them a green, a high score. If they've applied for match funding, we would give them a 2. However, if they've applied for 100% funding from CRF, then we've just given them a low score. But however, applicants were able to apply for 100% funding. Yeah, it just didn't seem fair to give them a higher score against some of the other projects where they do have match funding. So that's what that red means there. And in terms of engagement and support, environmental sustainability, again, engagement and support, limited answer there. However, I'm sure that the organisation does have a lot of support locally, but it was just anecdotal information in the application. And again, the project doesn't really fit very well in terms of environmental sustainability. But again, they've explained what they do as an organisation. So the next project is the Melners Croftus Estate application, and again this has been awarded CLLD funding. So the request to the area budget is now £18,900. So this is to develop affordable housing in Melners. So it's just for that initial development phase, to get architects on board, to get the rebirth stages ready to apply for planning permission and building warrant. So in terms of the assessment, just given the nature of the phase of the project, that's why some of the criteria is scored an amber. It's just where they're at the minute. It's just early stages of the project, and again. Yes, similar to the previous project, the match funding there should be red because it is 100% requested funding from the local funds and the CLLD. So the next project is another one from the Dornoch area community interest company. This one has also been awarded CLLD funding. So again, reduction in requests to the area funds. So they are now requesting £4,080 from the area funds. So they would like to pilot a 2-year project for a community transport project, and they will lease an electric vehicle. The CRF phase will cover costs for the first year only of the pilot, and the match funding will cover year 2 of the project. So there'll be costs towards a coordinator, some volunteer expenses, and some leasing, and obviously charging the electric vehicle. So there'll be some costs towards that. So I've marked them, I guess, slightly down for the exit strategy, and I guess because it is a pilot, it's just not a clear exit strategy. If the service is likely to continue or not after, but like I said, it is a pilot, so they will gather a lot of the data, as they start the project to see if it is a viable, if it can become viable a bit later on. And then I just scored them slightly down for the equalities. It's just not sure in the application if the vehicle is going to be suitable for wheelchair users. And marked them down slightly for value for money. Just doesn't explain roughly how many people that it is likely to service, and how many volunteer drivers that they're likely to have, and when the service might be available. Again, appreciate it is a pilot, so this is the information they will gather as they start the project. The next project is from Far North Community Development Trust. So this is another community transport project. So they would like to, the specific CRF phase is to purchase an electric vehicle. However, this is part of a bigger project. So so I marked them down slightly for project robustness, and that's to do with the running costs. They haven't quite secured funding towards the manager and the project coordinator for this. So, and they are requesting CRF to purchase the electric vehicles. So there's just a lot of questions around the management of the scheme before they can purchase the vehicle. So that's why this project scored a bit, slightly less in the project robustness and the exit strategy as well for that project. So the next project is the Dornoch Firth Group. So again, this is one of the other ones that has been awarded CLLD funding. So this is the CARES Counselling Project. So this project is aimed at providing counselling services for adults aged 16 and above in Sutherland. So I believe it was initially set up as a pilot, and they received funding from the Highland Council. However, that funding is running out. So this is a continuation service. There's high demand for the service. They said in the application that within the first 6 months they have delivered 204 counselling sessions. There's plenty of demand for the service. I believe they work with GPs and other healthcare services on referrals. So the main costs are for a project coordinator, and they use the Scottish Counselling Service for the counselling sessions. So they applied for 8,778 from the area funds. So this will run for another year. And in terms of the assessment, straightforward project. Continuation of service, so no recruitment there. And then again, in terms of the engagement and support, again, just limited in detail. There was no letters of support. There was no clear exit strategy. However, again, that if they are awarded funding, they will have 12 months to plan ahead again, how they will, sustain the service if the demand is still there. And similar with the other projects, it is 100% request from the funds that we administer. So that's why the match funding is just scored red there. The next project is the Asset Foundation, the upgrading and the resurfacing of the single track road. So this is to improve the section of road between Lochinver and Glen Canisp, down to the estate lodge. And they will like to improve some signage as well along that road. So this is a request of £37,345 pounds and 42 pence. They'd like to start the project as soon as possible. I've just flagged there's some concerns to do with costs on this project, so that's why project robustness is scored slightly down. The quotes is based on prices they received in early 2021. So, and obviously with inflation, anticipating that actual costs, is likely to be a lot more. They have secured funding from the first round of coastal communities. They've tried to get match funding. They've struggled a bit. There was a query in terms of to demonstrate additionality and a need for additional funding. So there was a query around some of the figures in their accounts. However, the applicant has confirmed that the unrestricted funding in the account is based on the assets and not actually cash. They don't have the cash reserves in a bank account. So it was just demonstrating the additionality there. But however, the applicant has come back and answered that question. So the next project is the Brora Development Trust. They have been awarded some CLLD funding. So the request to the area is now £13,467. So they would like to set up a visitor information point at the Otters Couch. So they will employ an officer for 3 days a week for 12 months. They hope to provide like a rental space or to have some sort of a container so an adventure company can base themselves there and offer some adventure services for tourists. So yeah, they'd like to set up a website and some information materials to promote Brora as a tourist destination, because it is part of the North Coast 500. So in terms of the technical assessment, it has scored quite a bit of ambers there, and it is, again, some limited answers in the application. There's just no evidence on, like letters of support, for example, to back some of the claims. And there was just some queries around the match funding. That's why I've scored them slightly less in the robustness. They said they've applied for match funding, however, they just have not included it in the figures, so it's just a bit unclear there what the match funding is for and why it has not been included in the application. And they're going to generate a small income stream from renting the container for the adventure company. However, just mark them down for the exit strategy, because that income is not going to be enough to sustain the post, for example. So there's just no clear exit strategy how that post will continue after the project. Value for money just marked down slightly because costs were just based on comparisons, and it's just not clear if they were just recent costings, that's all. So just slight concerns there with some of the costings. So the next project is the Kyle of Sutherland hub. So this is to development plans to extend the hub. So I believe during lockdown they had this marquee and it's proved to be really, really successful, and it's just highlighted a need for additional space so they can offer more activities in the area. So they would like to appoint a design team and perhaps do a bit of feasibility work to get them up to a planning stage. So this is for 43,200 for a development phase. So in terms of the assessment criteria, I've given them a red for the equality section because they just didn't answer or made an attempt to answer that section at all. However, I have no doubts that the hub as an organisation definitely meets this, but yeah, they just didn't answer it in the application. And they did say in the application that in the first 6 months they have generated 26,000 by using this marquee. So just to establish a need for the additionality there and the need for public funding. I went back to and queried this with the applicant. However, they said it's not surplus money that they have. It's great that they've been able to generate this income. However, it is being invested in the running cost and the day-to-day running cost of the hub, and obviously costs are going up, so cost of inflation is putting pressure on their budgets as well. And then I just marked them down slightly on the value for money. The cost in the application just wasn't sufficiently broken down, and again it just wasn't clear if the costs were recent. However, I do believe that that they have been in dialogue with a local architect. So the next project is from Broader Development Trust again. So this is town centre improvements. So they'd like to put some signage, again, just to improve the visitor experience. So yeah, these finger posts will just direct people to various places around the village. So this is a request for £8,800. In terms of the assessment criteria, in terms of the project robustness, they do need consent from the Highland Council and Bear Scotland to put these signs up. So, and I believe that, they haven't applied for that, and I guess they won't apply for them until they know they have funding for it. They just haven't addressed the equality section at all, and I was expecting to see some information there, perhaps about the signage being compliant with disability and access requirements, but it wasn't really answered. And then just some anecdotal evidence against some of the other criteria in terms of community engagement and support. There was no letters, for example. And just like the other ones, it's 100% request, and that's why that was given a 100% or given a red for the match funding. And the last project on the list, so this is from the Go Goldsby Fountain Hall Improvement Project. So again, it's a newly established group. I think I believe they purchased the hall in 2001. So they're just getting themselves set up and up and running. So I guess this application is kind of like in two parts. So there's a series of upgrades that they'd like to put in place. So they want to install an acoustic system so they can have concerts and music venues and all that. And they'd like to have better, more energy efficient LED lighting around the hall. And also they do rely a lot on volunteers, so they would like to purchase some large capital, the sit-on mower, for example, and a leaf blower to maintain the gardens. And then the second part of the application, there's a lot of kind of maintenance type work in the application. And also they also would like to seek funds for a part-time cleaner for the next 14 months as well, because to help manage the whole. So they are looking for £21,042 from the area funds. So in terms of match funding, they will find out in February if they've been successful with the SSE fund. So that's why the project robustness was marked down slightly. In terms of engagement and support, they did explain that the hall is really well used in the application. Over 100 people a week, I think, use the hall. However, there was just no letters of support just to back some of the claims there. So that's why it was marked down slightly. And I guess because parts of the application is to do with a lot of small maintenance type work, so I guess it just scored the application down a little bit in terms of the assessment criteria, and it just flags up some additionality issues, and I'll explain why. So there's some queries around some items that is considered to be it's statutory requirements. So they want to put fire alarms in, they want to have safety lighting, and they want to purchase a mobile phone for emergency contact, and there's some cost in there for some electric heaters. However, they do have an air source heat pump. So just some queries there on the additionality, and whether perhaps if they weren't successful in getting additional money, if some of these costs would have to just be covered anyway, because they are considered statutory because of health and safety. However, the other part of the application where they are wanting to install the acoustic, purchase the sit-on mower for the maintaining the area and putting more energy efficient LED lighting, and I believe they also want to put in a car charging points as well for the community car club. So all of that scored highly. It's just that some of these maintenance type work, is it considered statutory? However, this is something that would just need to be queried with the applicant. And that's it.
Well, thank you.
To taking the questions.
You can pause for breath now.
Thank you.
That was quite a delivery. First of all, thank you very, very much for all the hard work you've done. There's a huge amount of work gone into this developments that we've been presented with today. So thank you very much and well done for all the hard work. What I'd like to suggest now is that I'll open it up to the floor for the members to ask any questions about any of the particular projects, and then once we've addressed those, we can see how we go forward. So members, do you have any questions about any of the projects that have been laid before you today? I'm seeing a lot of shaking heads. Online members, sorry.
No, I was just thinking, she's giving us lots of information.
Yeah. Online members, Hugh and Marianne, have you got any questions for Paula on any of the projects that have been laid out in front of us?
Not as right now, Chair, thank you.
Okay.
Just a quick one, Chair. Just for clarity, if we agree these projects, what's the current sum remaining and committed?
Paula, do you want to give us an update on that, please?
I didn't catch it when Paula said it.
So I'll just scroll down through my spreadsheet. So if all projects are awarded today, that will leave a balance of nearly 70,000. So it'll be 69,995 and 52 pence available in the area budget if all of them are awarded today.
Right, thanks for that. That gives us, as members, an opportunity to look at other projects going forward. So that will forthcoming. Okay. Any other questions from anybody? No. Well, again, thank you, Paul. What I would suggest now, in my opinion, all of the projects are good, viable projects, and you've done a lot of hard work to investigate. So what I would like to do at this moment is to move that we approve all projects en masse, subject to obviously the conditions that you talked about already, with the various ones with the amber and the red issues, that you can address those going forward with the applicants. Do you have a seconder for that? Councillor Niven? Okay. Anybody, any other suggestions or otherwise minded? No? Okay. Okay, well, I think we're agreed, Paula, that all of the projects have been approved. And again, thank you very, very much for all your hard work. It is greatly appreciated. And thank you for waiting so long, because we've had a very long meeting.
Okay,
So
thanks for your time.
That's great. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you very much indeed.
Cheers.
Bye-bye. Bye. Okay, members. Now we have. Let's see here. How are we? I'm lost.
It's me now.
I was going to say, does anyone want to take a break before we go on to this?
Yeah.
Can I have a 10-minute break?
2 minutes.
Yeah. Okay, members, we're on to item 9 of the agenda, which is the Donna Common Good Fund annual report. And we have a good friend, Mr. Phil Tomlin, to deliver it to us.
Thank you, Chair. This report presents the Donna Common Good annual report for 2021-2022, the quarter 3 monitoring report for the current financial year, the budget for 23-24. It also asks for your approval of a DACIC application for £50,000 for multi-use games area. It invites members to consider future management of reserves, and it provides a property update. I won't go into great detail, but I'll just highlight a few items from the report. First, the Common Good Annual Report 2021-22. You'll notice a underspend against grants and contributions. This is due to a grant not being drawn down by Donna Heritage Society. That has been rolled forward in the budget, as you'll see, and the cost of the renovation of the Donna public conveniences in the square there. That was coded as a property maintenance and repair cost rather than a grant, and you'll notice that budget line is overspent by a corresponding amount. Income is on budget, and overall the fund was within budget, retaining a deficit, funded from reserves of £77,000, and this was actually £20,000 less than the deficit that was budgeted, so that's additional money into usable reserves. Moving on to the quarter 3 monitoring report, The main items of interest to members will be the income from the sale of land at River Street and Well Street, and the income from the beach car park. Both are not in the budget, so that means that the fund will deliver a surplus for the year, although the capital receipt will need to be ring-fenced. The 23-24 budget, most of the items are as in previous years. Items that have changed or are of note is that the conclusion of the Royal Dornoch Golf Club lease will lead to a significant increase in income. The rent payable is dependent on visitor numbers and whether the clubhouse project has started or not. The budget for the current year assumes sufficient numbers for full rent, but no started clubhouse, which would trigger additional rent. The car park income estimate is £4,500 for the year, and that's based on current year's income to date. Otherwise, income is as previous years. Expenditure, there is a roll forward of the History Links grant hasn't been drawn down at £7,000, previously mentioned. The second half of the Dornoch bid support, that's £4,999. £25,000 for community grants, which is the usual amount aside for that, and then £50,000 for the Datchik project, which I'll come to just now. And the balance, the proposed budget will deliver a deficit of £25,799, which will be funded out of the ample reserves, plenty to cover that. Moving on to the Datchik project Curlew Phase 2, something that has received support from Common Good in its earlier phases. This particular part is to build a floodlit multi-use games area in Dornoch on the Dornoch South site. Cost is £213,986. There's plenty of detail in the report. Following the previous item, I can now confirm that all the match funding is in place. The project enjoys community support, and members are recommended to approve the 50k from the Dornoch Common Good Fund. The next item is the future strategy of Common Good reserves. Following the increased income, this becomes more relevant. There has in the past been a history of building reserves at the wish of the community for a significant project. There is perhaps now a need to consider whether that is still to be the strategy moving forward, or whether money is to be invested on a year-on-year basis in community projects. So that means either we need a plan coming forward from the community of projects that like to be brought forward, or if it's money to be built, then an investment strategy. There is community interest in this, and there will be an opportunity for them to feed into by members, and I'll also be meeting with Community Council at various points, no doubt, and talking to them about their views. But the important point is that at this stage, members are asked to know that we'll be working with you on this during the year, so that by the time we get to next year's budget, we'll have a clear position. The final part is the property update, and really it's just draw your attention to ongoing issues with Dornoch Burn. The mouth of the burn has moved considerably south. It's lengthened the lower part of the burn by about 800 metres. So the flow has slowed down, which is leading to siltation, particularly in the caravan park where there's an artificial channel. The lease of the caravan park makes the Common Good Fund responsible for the maintenance of that particular part of the burn. So we've had to invite some expert opinion, which hopefully will be coming forward via Nature Scott, and we'll be keeping members and the community informed when we have information to share.
Okay. Thank you, Phil. Okay, any members got any comments or questions for Phil at the moment?
I'll find with you, Chair, but I cannot comment on the Datchik application.
Appreciate that.
No.
Good. Thanks. Okay, going forward myself, I think we really need to be very careful about the liabilities that we have, especially with the burn. I think we don't know what the outcome of that is. So making any decisions on spending on a regular basis, it needs to take that into consideration. And I think we also need to look at, if we're going for projects, then it's a case of finding projects that are sustainable and provide legacy for the area. So it's an ongoing support for the donor community. I think we should, I'm sure we all do take our responsibilities as trustees of the donor common good very seriously, and it has to be done in the best interest of donor as a whole. And looking at projects coming forward, they need to show that sustainability, and they need to show the legacy to make sure that we actually have something positive going forward that will be there and stand the test of time. But also bearing in mind our liabilities, as I've said. On that basis, we're asked to consider the Donor Common Good Fund annual report and accounts for 21-22. Consider the position of the Donor Common Good Fund as shown in Quarter 3 monitoring statement. Agree the Donor Common Good Fund annual budget for 22-23 and approve the £50,000 for Datchik project Curlew Phase 2 multi-use games area. Are we happy to do that?
Yes. That should be 23-24. Sorry.
How's that? Hugh, sorry, did you say anything?
Yeah, no, I was just agreeing with you, like.
Okay, thanks, Hugh. Appreciate it. Marianne, any comments?
No, that's fine. I agree.
Okay, thank you. Okay, members, that's fine. That's all agreed. Moving on to the final item on the agenda, which is the minutes of the last meeting, which was held on 7th November 22. Do we have a proposer?
Yeah.
So proposer and seconder. There we go. Okay. Councillor McGilvray and Councillor Beard have proposed and seconded. Thank you very much. That brings us to an end of the meeting. And thank you for your forbearance. It's been a very long meeting. I have in the past complained that our meeting has been too short. I'll take that back.
No, that's
okay, thank you. And thank you all. That's the end of the meeting. Thank you very much indeed for taking over from Marianne. Greatly appreciated.
Thank
you,
you.
member. Thank you, Chair. Bye.
Bye.